Chapter 652. Seeing hope in despair was a great blessing in life. Lu Gongyuan didn't expect to experience this scene in his lifetime. Looking at the boundless sword chi shattering Su Beigui's saber momentum, Su Beigui's horrified eyes seemed to completely defeat him. The saber in Su Beigui's hand shattered, and the sword chi entered his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His eyes flashed with disbelief. Who is this person? For so many years, Kanglan sword sect only had one expert, Lu Gongyuan. Who is this guy? But now wasn't the time to think about this. Su Beigui just wanted to escape. At this moment, Su Beigui decisively chose to burn his qi and blood. He used the fastest speed to escape down the mountain. He didn't even care about his Nujiang gang members. But as the figure gently waved his hand, countless long swords and sword chi condensed into a giant sword that was hundreds of meters in size. It slashed down. Although the power used wasn't Lu Gongyuan's river-sinking sword, the power wasn't inferior to Lu Gongyuan's peak when he slashed the Kanglan River. No! Su Beigui roared. He hadn't become the top expert in Wei County. He had just stepped into the martial Dao Master realm, and he didn't want to die yet. Endless blood chi and killing intent condensed into a giant blade that slashed down. But in front of the sword that was enough to split the river, everything was shattered. The sky was filled with blood mist, and Su Beigui died without a complete corpse. It was extremely miserable. The figure walked to Lu Gongyuan's side, helped him up, and whispered, "Master, disciple is late." Lu Gongyuan opened his mouth and laughed silently, but in the next moment, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. "Master!" Shenbai looked at Lu Gongyuan anxiously and immediately placed his hand on Lu Gongyuan's back. A warm and majestic qi poured into Lu Gongyuan's body. Lu Gongyuan waved his hand and said weakly, "Don't waste your energy. My lifespan is coming to an end, and even the gods can't save me. But I am very happy, really happy. You actually did something that countless generations of Kanglan sword sect ancestors couldn't do. The heavens haven't forsaken our Kanglan sword sect. Now, have you stepped into the real pellet state?" Shenbai's eyes showed a touch of sorrow. He shook his head and said, "No, just a little bit. Because I don't know how to condense the martial Dao true elixir, I wanted to figure it out myself, but I noticed the movement outside, so I came out early." Hearing this, Lu Gongyuan was stunned. His face revealed an expression that seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. He did not know what to say and could only say that it was fate. There was actually no danger in the first few realms of a martial artist, but only at the step of condensing the martial Dao true pellet would there be some accidents. Although the probability was not high, there were often people who had problems at this step. Therefore, sects like the Azure Billow Sword sect would have very detailed records of condensing the true martial pill, as well as the various experiences of the seniors. Sect like the Guard, sect would sect true elixir, but they and, sect, shen, and, and. But Chen, he didn't state of sect, but Shen, sect, Chen. He Shen, he. That's why such an embarrassing thing happened. When Shenbai noticed that Su Beigui was making a move outside, he couldn't care about anything else and had to come out first. But then Lu Gongyuan shook his head and said, "I am too greedy. It's not easy for you to do this. You can easily kill a martial Dao Grand Master with unity of heaven and man." Among the younger generation, except for Zhang Qingzhen, who has already stepped into the martial Dao Grand Master realm, there is only Chu Xiu, who almost became the public enemy of the righteous path and just killed Nier and Long. Shenbai's heart trembled, and he said after a moment of silence, "Zhang Qingzhen has already stepped into the martial Dao Grand Master realm? Chu Xiu actually killed Nier and Long?" When Shenbai first walked out of Kanglan sword sect, he set Zhang Qingzhen as his goal. At that time, Shenbai wasn't arrogant, he was just a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. But reality gave him a cruel blow. He didn't even see Zhang Qingzhen, and he was already crippled by Chu Xiu. As for Chu Xiu, who was once his enemy, he had already killed a powerful player on the Windcloud ranking list, the Manor Master of the Loyalty Manor, Nie Renlong, and stirred up a storm in the entire Jianghu. Shunbai instantly felt as if he had missed out on many things. Lu Gongyuan sighed. He also knew that Shunbai had missed out on the most exciting period of time in the underworld. Especially in Xiaofan, Zhang Qingzhen fought against a group of young experts, condensed the True Thunder Elixir, and stepped into the martial Dao Grand Master realm. This matter was enough for the Celestial Master residents to brag for hundreds of years. If Shunbai didn't have an accident, with his talent and temperament, although he couldn't become Zhang Qingzhen, he could at least become like Chu Xiu, one of the members who was challenged by Zhang Qingzhen in the past. However, God was fair. Shunbai was well prepared. Now that 10,000 swords returned to origin, although he hadn't reached the real pellet state, his strength was already comparable to most of the real pellet state martial artists. Shunbai helped Lu Gongyuan to sit down in the sect. Lu Gongyuan told Shunbai all the things that happened in the underworld during this period of time, and Shunbai's expression was a little complicated. He had a great hatred with Chu Xiu, and Chu Xiu almost crippled him. In the end, this great enemy of his had already stirred up the winds and clouds of the entire Jianghu, while he, Shunbai, was still a nobody. After speaking, Lu Gongyuan sighed and said to Shunbai, "What are you going to do now? You have mastered 10,000 swords returned to origin, and you want to go to the Guanzhong torture room to find Chu Xiu for revenge?" Just as Shunbai was about to nod his head, he suddenly thought of something and spoke in a deep voice, "Revenge can be done at any time, but my Azure Water Sword sect has declined to this day. Even a nobody like Su Beigui dares to challenge us. It is time for my Azure Water Sword sect to once again make a name for itself in the underworld. Since the Northern Yan Alliance has been destroyed, then I will go to Eastern Qi and find the Nansang Xiahou clan. My Wei County, after all, was once a vassal state of Eastern Qi." Lu Gongyuan looked at Shunbai with relief. Being able to think about the sect was enough to prove that Shunbai had grown up. He could die without regrets. If it was the previous Shunbai, the other party would definitely impulsively go to Chu Xiu for revenge. But now, Shunbai would suppress the hatred in his heart and learn to think about the sect first. Lu Gongyuan could also rest assured to hand over the Kanglan sword sect to him. "Help me up and gather all the disciples." Shunbai hesitated for a moment. He vaguely guessed something, but he still gathered all the Kanglan sword sect disciples. Looking at the crowd below, Lu Gongyuan said in a deep voice, "I am old and can no longer wield a sword. I, Lu Gongyuan, have let a despicable person like Su Beigui come knocking on my door. I, Lu Gongyuan, have let down my ancestors. The Kanglan sword sect has declined in my hands. I, Lu Gongyuan, have let down my ancestors. But fortunately, Shunbai comprehended the secret technique left behind by the ancestors and killed the enemies. It is enough to lead my Kanglan sword sect to stand proudly in the Wei County again. So from today onwards, I will pass on my position to Shunbai and will no longer be the Kanglan sect master." The disciples below didn't react. The sect master was actually going to give up his position? Shunbai might have vaguely guessed something, but he still couldn't help but say, "Master." Lu Gongyuan weakly waved his hand and spoke in a firm tone, "Receive the sword." Shunbai hesitated for a moment, but he still knelt down and received the sword from Lu Gongyuan. This sword is Baihong, ranked 87th in the martial world's famous sword manual. It was personally forged by my Kanglan sword sect's 6th generation ancestor. Baihong breaks the waves and advances with indomitable will. Back then, Baihong was a divine weapon, but due to an accident, a portion of its spirituality was damaged, causing it to not be considered a complete divine weapon. However, the weapons in the martial world are never famous because of the weapon itself, but because of its owner. Just like the Sword Monarch City's awakening salamander, which was prepared for the Sword Monarch City Lord, and Mount Longhu's slaying evil, which was the Celestial Master's sword. Baihong is nameless in my hands. I only hope that you can make it famous in the martial world with you in the future. Shenbai nodded. However, the moment he took the fogbow sword, Lu Gongyuan suddenly held Shenbai's hand tightly. Streams of extremely pure vital energy flowed into Shenbai's body. Master! Shenbai shouted, but Lu Gongyuan remained unmoved. In fact, Shenbai's current strength was stronger than Lu Gongyuan, but Lu Gongyuan was also a martial Dao master and Shenbai's master. Shenbai actually couldn't break free from Lu Gongyuan's grasp. In that split second of hesitation, Lu Gongyuan had already poured the last bit of his power into Shenbai's body. Although it could not make him a martial Dao master, it helped him cleanse the power in his body, making it much purer. But it was also because of this that Lu Gongyuan's appearance rapidly aged. In almost an instant, his face was covered with wrinkles like withered tree bark, and his body was filled with an aura of death. Master! Shenbai looked at Lu Gongyuan in disbelief and didn't know why he did this. With Lu Gongyuan's current state, as long as he recuperated for a period of time, he would still be able to live for a period of time. Lu Gongyuan waved his hand and said in a weak tone, as a martial artist, it is a tragedy to die in bed of old age. I can't do it anymore. I don't even have the strength to protect you for the last time. This is my last gift to you. Bring it into the martial world, become famous, and revive the prestige of my Azure Wave Sword sect. I, Lu Gongyuan, have not let down the ancestors of the past. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Gongyuan's hand that was grabbing onto Shenbai fell, and he was completely lifeless. Master! Shenbai, who had always been indifferent, had a trace of tears at the corner of his eyes for the first time. The other Azure Wave Sword sect disciples were also crying and shouting for sect master. In all fairness, Lu Gongyuan's conduct in his life was flamboyant in his early years, overbearing in his middle years, and low profile in his later years. But until the moment of his death, everything he did for the Azure Wave Sword sect was worthy of what he said before his death. He didn't let down the ancestors. Chapter 653. The atmosphere in the Guanzhong torture room was very depressing. When they attacked the Northern Yen, most of them were still excited because they were hunters at that time. But now, they were about to face the enemies who came to them. They didn't even know how many of them there were. They became the prey, which was not a good feeling. It only took Chu Xiu one day to restore himself to the peak. He didn't choose to continue his closed-door training. Instead, he went to find Wei Shuya. Even if Feng Buping came to treat Wei Shuya's injuries, he wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. He still needed to rest. So, in the Guanzhong Punishment Hall, Chu Xiu found a place for Wei Shuya to rest. Wei Shuya didn't refuse. This was also his attitude. Even if Chu Xiu failed to protect the Guanzhong torture room this time, at least he, an expert in the true fire refining state, was there. Although he was seriously injured and couldn't protect the Guanzhong torture room, at least he could protect Chu Xiu's life. Although the rules of the Yinma clan were cruel, they were not so cruel that one failure would lead to death. Wei Shuya knocked on the door and said lightly, "Come in." Chu Xiu pushed the door and entered the room. Wei Shuya didn't meditate as Chu Xiu had imagined. Instead, he sat on the bed with his legs crossed, lit an incense burner, and brewed a pot of good tea. He held a book in his hand, looking relaxed and contented. However, Chu Xiu glanced at the book. It was not a scripture of Taoism, Buddhism, or Diabolism, nor was it a book of martial arts. On the cover, there were 4 words, "Mercy, Child," written in rough handwriting. An erotic novel? Chu Xiu's expression was slightly strange. Wei Shuya, an expert in the true fire refining state, one of the 5 skyscraping devils in the past, and a giant of the diabolism who had stirred up a storm, would read such a thing. Wei Shuya coughed and threw the book aside. His expression didn't change at all. He said in a low voice, "Why do you have time to come here? Are you feeling uneasy?" Chu Xiu, who was sitting opposite Wei Shuya, shook his head and said, "I'm the one who chose this path. The battle hasn't started yet, so why would I feel uneasy? I'm just here to ask Senior Wei for some guidance." Wei Shuya asked, "What is it?" Chu Xiu said solemnly, "Something about the real pellet state." Wei Shuya asked curiously, "Don't you have these things?" He knew that Chu Xiu did not have a master, but some of Chu Xiu's fortuitous encounters and inheritances were not weak. Moreover, after Chu Xiu obtained the Guanzhong torture room, the entire Guanzhong torture room's internal energy secret manual could be read by Chu Xiu at will. There were many martial Dao Grand Masters in the Guanzhong torture room. For example, Chu Kuanga and Guan Siyu, after they stepped into the real pellet state, they would definitely leave some insights in the Guanzhong torture room, so Chu Xiu should understand this realm very well. Chu Xiu said, "I have these things, but I want to know something that Guanzhong torture room doesn't have. The human body has infinite potential. In fact, most people don't push themselves to the extreme before breaking through to the next realm. Although it can be exchanged for more powerful power, their achievements are limited. I cultivate martial arts. Although I can't completely cultivate a realm to a perfect level, at least I want to reach the limit in the entire realm, my own limit. At present, within the realm of the unity of nature and man, there are only a few people who can compete with me, but there are still many things that I haven't explored in the realm of martial Dao Grand Master. In the past, I once saw a description in Xiaofan Heaven. In the ancient times, after the Taoist of Lingbao Temple stepped into the martial Dao real pellet state, he could condense the glow of Lingbao. Recently, Zhang Chengzhen also condensed the golden core of thunder, and it is said that in the Great Light Temple, some people have also condensed things such as 7 treasure relics. Then, does my demon Dao have a way to condense a special martial Dao real pellet? Wei Shuya's expression suddenly condensed when he heard the words. He looked at Chu Xiu and said solemnly, "You want to try to condense this special martial Dao real pellet? I advise you to be cautious. The power of condensing a variant true pellet is not as powerful as you think. It can only be said to be icing on the cake, and there will be no qualitative change. Instead, there is a great risk. Just like the golden core of thunder that Zhang Chengzhen condensed. In fact, the method to condense the golden core of thunder is not difficult, and it is not a secret method that is not passed down. Most of the martial artists in the Taoist Master Mansion can read it at will. But for thousands of years, only Zhang Chengzhen has condensed this golden core of thunder, so you can imagine the difficulty. You know very well how Zhang Chengzhen condensed the golden core of thunder. The difficulty and danger are not ordinary. Although compared with the ordinary martial Dao real pellet, the true pellet of thunder is indeed strong enough, but after you and Zhong Xian step into the real pellet state, your strength will not be too far away from Zhang Chengzhen. It is not worth the risk. Chu Xiu said solemnly, "Some things are not worth it, but should I do it or not? I just don't want to fall behind others, and I am unwilling to give up any opportunity to become stronger. This time is a disaster, but at the same time, the disaster can also become a chance. If I survive it, I will be reborn and my strength will be greatly improved." Wei Shuya stared at Chu Xiu and said, "What if you can't survive it?" Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Although I'm used to thinking about defeat before victory most of the time, leaving a way out for myself, there are times when I have to be brave and aggressive. I can only look forward, and not backward. I have made up my mind, please help me, Senior Wei." Wei Shuya took a deep look at Chu Xiu and said, "Since it is your own choice, then I won't say anything more. It's good that you know what you are doing." As he said, Wei Shuya took out an ancient book from the space secret box and handed it to Chu Xiu. He said solemnly, "This is the ancient book of the Kunlun devil cult about condensing martial Dao real pellet. It was left by my elder brother. It is the original secret book of the Kunlun devil cult. It is said that Sir Dugu Weiwei personally wrote the way to condense the immortal demon pellet. Wei Shuya's elder brother was naturally the leader of the 5 sky demons of the 9 heavens mountain. This person was from the orthodox Kunlun devil cult, so it was not surprising that he had this thing. After glancing at the contents, Chu Xiu was slightly shocked. Has anyone tried to condense this immortal demon pellet? Wei Shuya shook his head and said, after the Kunlun devil cult was annihilated, a portion of the items were destroyed. A portion of the items fell into the hands of the righteous sects that attacked the Kunlun devil cult. There was also a portion that fell into the hands of some devil cult martial artists. My elder brother's lineage belongs to the direct line of descent of the Kunlun demon sect. He had seen this thing before, but before he could even try it, he had already given up. You should have seen the content of it for yourself. It's extremely harsh, and it's not something that people of his cultivation realm can achieve. Therefore, as time passed, many people were willing to try it. Chu Xiu, kid, you obtained the inheritance of Patriarch Dugu, which is considered a blessing in disguise. You are more suitable to condense this item than others. But you better think about the consequences first. Once you fail, it will even affect your current realm and foundation. Chu Xiu nodded. He took the secret manual back to his place of seclusion and flipped through it. As he read, the plan slowly took shape in his mind. At the same time, over at the Azure Water Sword sect, following the death of Lu Gongyuan, the entire Azure Water Sword sect was in a state of mourning. Due to the lack of time, there wasn't even time to give Lu Gongyuan a grand funeral. Shenbai had to set off for Eastern Qi, and the sect could only be temporarily handed over to other disciples to take care of. Shenbai always liked to wear white, and now that he was still wearing mourning clothes, it wasn't too out of place. Speaking of which, the degree of the Eastern Qi alliance, be it speed or other aspects, was actually inferior to the Northern Yen alliance. In Northern Yen, Nie Renlong relied on his own reputation, the reputation of the Morgue Manor, and the support of the Great Light Temple, which was why he attracted so many experts. In Eastern Qi, the Xiahou clan might be stronger than the Morgue Manor, but their reputation was far inferior. Furthermore, the martial arts world of Eastern Qi was vast and full of resources. Chu Xiu had only killed a few people. It wasn't like he had gone on a killing spree in all of Eastern Qi. Thus, there were more people watching than actually doing anything. At this moment, in the Nansang Xiahou clan, Xiahoujian was rubbing his head with a headache. Many things had happened during this period of time, and he still had to be responsible for the alliance, which made him a complete mess. Every day, there would be martial arts factions of all sizes arriving. Some of them really wanted to join the alliance, while others had the idea of getting a share of the pie. It was either for benefits or for reputation, and some even wanted to compete with him for the position of the alliance leader. All of these gave Xiahoujian a huge headache. The news of the destruction of the Northern Yen alliance had spread, but Xiahoujian was not afraid. Chu Xiu had just destroyed the Northern Yen alliance, and now he came to Eastern Qi to act presumptuously. First, there was not enough time. Second, the environment of Eastern Qi was much more complicated than that of Northern Yen. Chu Xiu coming to Eastern Qi of his own accord was courting death. However, Xiahoujian was a little envious of Nie Renlong. Of course, he was not envious that Nie Renlong was ambushed by Chu Xiu, but he was envious that Nie Renlong had the support of the Great Light Temple, so the alliance could proceed smoothly. On the other hand, he did not have a sect like the Great Light Temple to help him. The people of Chunyang Dao sect were stubborn and self-opinionated. They would rather act alone than join the alliance. There was also the sect of real martial arts. They were the leader of Eastern Qi Dao sect, and even the state religion of the Eastern Qi imperial court. But now they were pretending to be deaf and dumb, as if they did not know about this matter. Xiahoujian had sent people to invite them, but in the end, they did not even see a single person from the sect of real martial arts. At this moment, a disciple came forward and said, "Master, there are people outside who are rushing us again." When will the alliance officially begin? Xiahozhen frowned and said, "The people are not here yet, why are they in such a hurry? Have the people we sent to invite the Xianxia family and the beggar sect returned?" The disciple nodded and said, "They have returned, but the Xianxia family said that they have important matters to attend to, so they can't join the alliance for the time being. They only agreed to sending Bailu to observe the battle. As for the beggar sect, they said that they could not find the sect leader, so they need a month's time. They will give us an answer when they find the sect leader." Xiahozhen waved his hand and snorted. "Since they are not willing to come, then the alliance will begin now." Chapter 654. Inside the Xiahou clan's mansion, countless warriors walked in and out. It was much livelier than when the Morgue Manor had formed the alliance. Right now, Xiahozhen was in charge of the Xiahou clan. In truth, there was another ancestor in the clan, but the Xiahou clan cultivated the art of imperial soul and was not particularly strong in terms of physical cultivation. The ancestor's physical body had already deteriorated. Although the power of his nascent spirit was still powerful, it no longer allowed him to show his face often and waste his energy. Therefore, most matters of the Xiahou clan had to be handled by Xiahozhen and a group of Xiahou elders. Xiahozhen had mixed feelings about Xiahozhen's patriarch. If not for the forefather, he could have ignored those annoying elders and made the house his own. Those old geezers only dared to act so arrogantly because of the forefather's backing. However, the Xiahou clan's reputation would suffer a great blow if the forefather were to lose his position. At least, before the Xiahou clan had a second expert in the true fire spirit refinement realm, the patriarch's existence was necessary. In a courtyard that the Xiahou clan had opened up, everything was ready. Xiahozhen walked to the center of the stage and said in a low voice, "Everyone, you must have heard the news from the northern Yen. Chu Xiu is so arrogant that he has no scruples. Brother Nya of the Morgue Manor has died tragically in his hands. Fortunately, the Eastern Qi martial world is powerful, so Chu Xiu doesn't dare to act presumptuously. However, the blood debt he has committed must be paid. Today, the Xiahou clan will lead the Eastern Qi martial world to form an alliance to attack the Guanzhong torture room and kill Chu Xiu. We hope that everyone can help us." Among the crowd below, a middle-aged man dressed in luxurious blue clothes immediately stood up and said, "Patriarch Xiahou is right. Chu Xiu is a cruel man. In the minor mortal heaven, the Lu clan did not provoke him, but we were all killed. This is too much." The enmity between the Gao Ping Lu family and Chu Xiu was born in the little mortal world. Inexplicably, the people of the Lu family were all killed by Chu Xiu. This made the people of the Lu family gnash their teeth in hatred. Later, when Chu Xiu's identity was exposed, they realized that their enemy was not far away. Some of the people who supported the Xiahou family agreed, but at this time, there was a different voice. "Patriarch Xiahou is right. Chu Xiu should be eliminated. This is related to the face of the orthodox martial world. But don't blame me for my harsh words, Patriarch Xiahou. What right do you have to be the leader of the alliance? None of those present are any less important than you, Patriarch Xiahou." The person who spoke was the master of the hidden sword villa, Cheng Tingshan of the Heartless Sword Tomb. Although the hidden sword villa was not very powerful, it was still one of the 5 major sword sections. It was not weaker than the Xiahou family. Xiahozhen frowned. "I'm the one who made the alliance happen. Everyone here knows how much effort House Xiahou has put into it. Cheng Tingshan, you want to take the position of leader with just one sentence? Don't you think the hidden sword villa is taking it for granted?" Cheng Tingshan shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm taking it for granted, but there are so many aces of the Eastern Qi martial world here. Master Xiahou, you are the leader of this alliance. No matter what, you should ask everyone's opinion, right?" As he spoke, Cheng Tingshan pointed at the people present. Brother Yuqi of the White Tiger Hall, Brother Mo of the Mo family of Xiangyang, Brother Wang Shuangjuan of the Twin Yang swords representing the Crown Prince, Smiling Miller, Qi Jian of the Great Prajna Temple, Brother Qi Yuanli of the Wind Sweeping House, Young Mastering Bailu of the Shangshuaying family, and Senior Luo Jianyan of the Luo family of the Wu County. Patriarch Xiahou, forgive me for being blunt, but among these people, in terms of status, strength, and seniority, you are not number one. I'm afraid you won't be able to convince everyone to accept you as leader. In fact, among these people, not everyone had come because they had a grudge against Chu Xiu. For example, Yuqi Feng of the White Tiger Hall was purely here to watch the show. However, because he was in Eastern Qi, and the White Tiger Hall was neither a righteous nor a demonic sect, he joined the alliance because he had the intention of getting closer to the righteous martial world. But when he arrived, whether he would make a move or not would depend on the situation. The Mo family of Xiangyang was the same. They knew of the friendship between Mo Tianlin and Chu Xiu. Although this friendship was not enough for the Mo family to side with Chu Xiu, the Mo family's attitude towards joining the alliance was very ambiguous. As for the Crown Prince, even Xiahou did not expect him to send someone. Twin Yang Swords Wang Shuangjuan was a middle-aged man with 2 swords on his back and a cold expression on his face. In the past, this person was a somewhat famous itinerant cultivator in the land of Eastern Qi. His strength was extraordinary, but he had not appeared in recent years. No one expected him to reach the martial arts grandmaster realm as soon as he appeared. He had even become the Crown Prince LV Longji's confidant, which was somewhat unexpected. This time, LV Longji also hated Chu Xiu very much, so he used his power to intervene in the affairs of Jianghu. During the trip to the Guanzhong torture room, Yang Gongdu and Eunuch Chen were killed by Divine Lord Luo and Chu Xiu respectively. However, LV Longji blamed this on Chu Xiu. Divine Lord Luo was far away in the heavenly gate of Western Kunlun. Even as the Crown Prince, LV Longji did not dare to find trouble with an expert of that level, so he could only find trouble with Chu Xiu. Moreover, Yang Gongdu's death really made LV Longji's heart ache. It was not that he had any gay relationship with Yang Gongdu, but Yang Gongdu's existence was simply a savior to LV Longji. As the Crown Prince, he was pressured by his younger brother step by step, and he was often in a weak position, so there were fewer and fewer people in the Eastern Qi imperial court who were willing to support him. Fortunately, Yang Gongdu's appearance helped him to reverse the situation. Even Wang Shuangjuan, a master in the supreme power realm, was roped in by Yang Gongdu. As a result, Yang Gongdu's death was equivalent to losing an arm of LV Longji. As for Smiling Miller, Qi Jian, although he did not have much hatred for Chu Xiu, Chu Xiu had a deep hatred for Buddhism. It just so happened that Qi Jian's Great Prajna Temple was also in Eastern Qi, so Qi Jian had a reason to attack. There was also Luo Jianyan, who also hated Chu Xiu to the core. In the past, he wanted to marry Luo Feiheng to the Shangshuaying family, but it was Chu Xiu who stirred up trouble in the end, which led to the failure of the plan. However, the Luo family had declined, and Luo Jianyan was conceded that he could not do anything to Chu Xiu, who had the protection of the Guanzhong torture room, so he had not come to cause trouble for Chu Xiu. This time, after learning that Xiahou had formed an alliance, Luo Jianyan took the initiative to come without Xiahou's invitation. As for Ying Bailu and Qi Yuanli, they were actually just here to watch the show. The Shangshuaying family had always been too lazy to participate in such things. This time, they had symbolically sent Ying Bailu here just to show respect to the Xiahou family. Otherwise, if the Shangshuaying family really wanted to make a move, they had no lack of experts in the martial Dao Grand Master realm. It was the same for Wind Sweeping Tower. However, if the Shangshuaying family was just here to watch the show, Wind Sweeping Tower was here to watch the show. For Wind Sweeping Tower, this was a major event in the Jianghu, so they had to be here personally to record it. Qi Yuanli had also volunteered to come. He had been in contact with Chu Xiu for a long time, and they had worked together before and traded information. However, he did not expect Chu Xiu to be Lin Yi from the Yinma clan. This kid had hidden his identity well. Xiahozhen looked at Cheng Tingshan coldly. As soon as these words came out, he was immediately rendered speechless. How was he supposed to respond? Could it be that everyone here was weaker than him, and only he was qualified to be the alliance leader? After a moment of silence, Xiahozhen waved his hand and said, "Since Villa Master Cheng thinks that I'm not worthy to be the alliance leader, then may I ask who else wants to be the alliance leader? As long as there's someone here who thinks that he's stronger than me, fine, I'll step aside and let him be the alliance leader. Of course, the prerequisite is that this person has to be able to convince the masses." Xiahozhen was taking a step back in order to advance. It was impossible for him to convince the masses, but what about the others? Wouldn't it be the same if someone else stood on this stage? Seeing that the tension between the two sides was getting stronger, Qi Yuanli stepped forward and said with a smile, "Everyone, we're going to the alliance to deal with other people, not to kill each other. It would be a joke if we started fighting before we even saw the enemy. How about this? I have an idea. Let's not talk so much nonsense between us. Let's directly decide the victor based on strength. Whoever wants to be the alliance leader can stand on the stage. We'll fight one round after another, and whoever can stand until the end will be the alliance leader. What do you all think?" Everyone present looked at each other, but no one objected. Deciding the victor with fists was the simplest thing to do. Cheng Tingshan laughed loudly and said, "Since that's the case, then I'll take the first round. Patriarch Xiahou, why don't you and I fight first?" Among the people present, there were only a few who could be ranked on the honor list. Although the Xiahou clan spirit control technique was magical, Cheng Tingshan was confident in his sword techniques. Moreover, the outcome of this round did not matter to Cheng Tingshan in the first place. The alliance was not established by Cheng Tingshan. If he lost this round, he would lose. He would not lose anything. However, if he won, the position of the alliance leader would belong to him. Then, the hidden sword villa's reputation would definitely skyrocket. It would be a free benefit. Therefore, Xiahozhen's face was a little dark. Obviously, he had also thought of this. Fighting like this would be disadvantageous to him. He had spent so much effort to establish the alliance, but when it was time to reap the rewards, someone else would be the first to reap the rewards. This was ridiculous. However, at this moment, a young man dressed in white mourning clothes and holding a sword suddenly walked in from the crowd. He said in a deep voice, "If no one comes on stage, I would like to experience Senior Cheng's sword techniques." Chapter 655. In all fairness, Shenbai's reputation in the pugilistic world wasn't that great. The Azure Water Sword sect had been declining for so long, and only Lu Gongyuan still had some reputation in the pugilistic world. As for the rest, whether it was Shenbai or the others, they could only be considered as nobodies. Seeing a martial artist who was only at the unity of heaven and man realm in mourning attire, Cheng Tingshan frowned and berated, "Which sect's junior is here to cause trouble? Didn't your elders teach you how to respect your juniors? The disciple might not be sensible, but is the master not sensible? Get down, don't mess around." Hearing Cheng Tingshan calling him master, Shenbai's eyes revealed a cold glint. But his expression didn't change at all. He held his sword and said in a deep voice, "Previously, no one mentioned that the unity of heaven and man realm can't participate in the contest. Could it be that Senior Cheng doesn't even dare to face a junior's challenge? I am Azure Water Sword Sect, the new sect master, Shenbai. Concealing Sword Villa Master Cheng, please enlighten me." At this moment, Shenbai wasn't challenging Cheng Tingshan as a junior, but as the Azure Water Sword sect master. Cheng Tingshan frowned, "You are the new sect master of Azure Water Sword sect? What nonsense! Where is Lu Gongyuan?" Shunbai said in a deep voice, "My master has passed away, so I am the new sect master of Azure Water Sword sect. Isn't this qualification enough to challenge Villa Master Cheng?" Hearing that Lu Gongyuan was dead, everyone was in an uproar. Cheng Tingshan's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. In all fairness, Lu Gongyuan was a formidable figure. When he was at his peak, even Cheng Tingshan didn't dare to make a move against him. But now that Lu Gongyuan was dead, and the Azure Water Sword sect had declined to the point of pushing a unity of heaven and man realm martial artist to be the sect master, this was simply a joke. The Azure Water Sword sect was still one of the 7 sects and 8 schools because of Lu Gongyuan's existence. Now that Lu Gongyuan was dead, the Azure Water Sword sect would probably be removed from the pugilistic world soon. This new sect master of Azure Water Sword sect might be talented, but he was still too young and inexperienced. At this time, instead of quickly hiding the news of Lu Gongyuan's death and cultivating behind closed doors to the real pellet state, he actually ran around and actively spread the news of Lu Gongyuan's death. This was simply digging his own grave. Cheng Tingshan snorted coldly. If Lu Gongyuan was still alive, he wouldn't let you do such a stupid thing. Since you're just a junior, I'll give you a chance. Leave. Shunbai shook his head and said, "Sorry, I don't want this opportunity." A hint of anger appeared on Cheng Tingshan's face as he said, "I gave you face, but you don't want it." As soon as he finished speaking, Cheng Tingshan had already unsheathed a long sword in his hand. It shone with a dazzling brilliance, and starlight scattered in all directions when the sword was unsheathed. Each streak of starlight contained an astonishing sword intent. The long sword in Cheng Tingshan's hand was a divine weapon. It was ranked 45th in the martial world's famed sword manual, Falling Star. Its grade was much higher than Shunbai's White Rainbow. There were 108 famed swords in the world, and a small half of them were kept in the hidden sword villa. Shunbai closed his eyes slightly. This was his first battle representing Azure Water Sword sect in the martial world. Even if he had to face an expert on the reputation list, the hidden sword villa's villa master, Cheng Tingshan, he couldn't lose. If Chu Xiu could kill Nie Renlong, then he could also defeat Cheng Tingshan. With such a resolute mood, Shunbai's White Rainbow was already unsheathed. It was such a casual sword strike, but it contained Shunbai's extreme concentration of blood and sweat. It made his face faintly reveal a trace of morbid paleness. As the sword thrust out, many of the sword-wielding martial artists found that the long swords in their waists were actually trembling and flying out of their control towards the arena. Apart from the martial Dao masters who were able to suppress their own weapons, the rest of the sword-wielding martial artists could only watch as their long swords flew out of their hands and circled around Shunbai. Countless sword hums resonated throughout the heavens and earth. Thousands of long swords were in the air, revolving and dancing in a dense manner. As Shunbai's sword descended, the countless long swords were mixed with thousands of sword chi as they continuously attacked Cheng Tingshan. The prowess was simply incomparably horrifying, causing everyone's scalp to go numb. Cheng Tingshan was also incomparably terrified. What are these things? The sword in his hand quickly changed from attacking to defending, but it was attacked by the countless long swords and sword chi, causing him to retreat step by step. Cheng Tingshan's strength was still considered strong. Previously, Su Beigui couldn't even resist against the powerful sword chi of the sect origin swords and was instantly killed. With a long sword in hand, Shunbai suddenly took a step forward. Countless long swords were gathered together by the formless sword chi, forming a giant sword that was hundreds of meters in size. It came crashing down at Cheng Tingshan. With a loud bang, the arena was directly smashed into pieces. Cheng Tingshan's figure was forced back several tens of meters before he stopped. His face was already pale with a tinge of red, and it seemed very strange. On Cheng Tingshan's fallen star sword, there were traces of tiny cracks. Shunbai's attack just now had actually almost shattered his fallen star sword. Shenbai sheathed his long sword with a pale face and said in a deep voice, "Manor Lord Cheng, thank you for letting me win." Everyone present was dumbfounded to see this scene. One move. This Shenbai actually defeated Cheng Tingshan in one move. This strength was a little too terrifying. When did the Azure Water Sword sect have such a person? This person was probably comparable to the top 3 on the Longhu roll. On the side, Ing Bailu also looked at Shenbai curiously. To be honest, he had only seen 2 people who could reach Shenbai's level of explosive power. One was Zhang Chengzhen, and the other was Chu Xiu. Even Zhong Xian was slightly inferior. Since the Azure Water Sword sect had such a genius, why didn't they bring him out earlier? If this Shenbai had appeared in the Xiaofan heaven, he would definitely be in the top 3 on the Longhu roll. Ing Bailu was purely sent out to be a mascot. He had no intention of fighting at all, but he didn't expect to get such an unexpected reward. This Shenbai was so much more interesting. Of course, Cheng Tingshan, who had been sent flying, didn't find it interesting at all. He threw the fallen star sword back into the secret space box and took out another long sword. It turned out to be a divine weapon as well, which made everyone's eyes turn green with envy. Some people even thought that if they killed Cheng Tingshan, would they be able to obtain all the items in Cheng Tingshan's secret space box? In fact, Cheng Tingshan's defeat just now was just a mistake. He didn't expect Shenbai to be so strong. That was why he made the first move without checking, and it was too late to defend himself. That was why he ended up in such a sorry state. Just as Cheng Tingshan was about to make another move, Xiahozhen sneered. "Cheng Tingshan, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose. You've lost this round. If you don't win the first time, you'll fight again. Are you trying to be shameless here without caring about anything? Your hidden sword villa can be shameless, but this time, our Eastern Qi alliance can't afford to waste any more time." Although the duel did not state whether being blasted out of the arena was considered a loss, Cheng Tingshan had been blasted away by Shenbai's sword in front of everyone's eyes and fell off the arena. If this was not considered a loss, then it was indeed a little unreasonable. Cheng Tingshan's face was flushed red. He was the master of the hidden sword villa and a senior in the martial world. But today, he lost to a junior like Shenbai in front of everyone. This was a great humiliation. Everyone present didn't care if Cheng Tingshan underestimated his opponent or if he still had a trump card. In their eyes, Cheng Tingshan had lost. With a heavy snort, Cheng Tingshan walked to the side and sat down with a dark expression. Xiahozhen laughed. "I didn't expect the Azure Water Sword sect to have such an outstanding person like Shenbai. Sect Master Lu may have passed away, but his spirit in heaven will be gratified. Shenbai has won this round. Who will be the next one?" Shenbai suddenly said, "I'm not here to fight for the position of alliance leader. Based on my seniority and experience, I don't have the qualifications to be the leader. Since Patriarch Xiahou was the initiator of this alliance and spent so much effort on it, it only makes sense that he should be the leader. If Lu Gongyuan could see Shenbai's performance today, his spirit in heaven would definitely be gratified. In the past, Shenbai was a man of few words, simple and crude, and usually didn't consider the consequences. But now, Shenbai had learned to do things with the mentality of a true sect master. The Azure Water Sword sect was weak, and Shenbai was a junior. Even though he was strong enough, but if they really fought, everyone here might not lose to him. Cheng Tingshan only lost because he underestimated his opponent. Therefore, if he insisted on fighting for the position of alliance leader, Shenbai might not have a good ending. On the contrary, he used his strongest ability to defeat Cheng Tingshan the moment he showed up. He won everyone's respect and made a name for the Azure Water Sword sect. If he took a step back, he would gain Xiahozhen's favor. Why not? As expected, after hearing Shenbai's statement, Xiahozhen immediately revealed a trace of delight. The head of the Lu family was on Xiahozhen's side. When he heard that, he immediately stood up and said, sect leader Shen is right. Brother Xiahou has been running around for the sake of the alliance, which is why we are all gathered here. In terms of understanding of the alliance, none of us here can compare to Brother Xiahou. It is indeed a bit too much to let someone else be the alliance leader. As Cheng Tingshan was humiliated and severely injured, no one stood up to object. The one with the most thoughts was Cheng Tingshan. The rest were either undecided and were prepared to watch the show, or they had a grudge against Chu Xiu. It didn't matter who the alliance leader was, as they only wanted to kill Chu Xiu. Therefore, no one stood up to object, except for Cheng Tingshan, who still had a dark expression. Xiahou Zhen revealed a smile, stood in the center, and cupped his hands together, saying, "Fortunately, I received everyone's favor and became the leader of this alliance. I will definitely lead everyone to kill Chu Xiu, that demon of the demonic path, and destroy the Guanzhong Discipline Hall, returning justice to the martial world." Chapter 656. Outside Guanzhong City, the bustling Guanzhong City, which used to be in the center of the three countries, was dead silent. There were almost no merchants coming and going. The merchants who came and went from the three countries were not idiots. The pugilistic world was in a state of panic. No one knew if Chu Xiu could survive this. At this moment, it had even escalated to a battle between the orthodox martial arts world and the Yinma clan. Perhaps in the end, even the true fire spirit refinement realm experts would take action and destroy the Guanzhong torture room. If they still walked into the Guanzhong torture room now, they would be courting death. Of course, according to insiders, there were already true fire spirit refinement realm experts taking action in this battle. They were the first seed of the Great Light Temple's Wangnian Zen Hall, Su Yun, and the Yinma clan's Wei Shuya. However, because there were no witnesses, most people thought it was just a rumor. Some of the Guanzhong Torture Hall martial practitioners standing on the walls of Guanzhong City all had grave expressions. Those who should have escaped had already escaped. Those who didn't escape were not loyal to Chu Xiu, but to the entire Guanzhong torture room. As for some people, they were reluctant to give up their positions and status. They didn't want to leave and wanted to bet on Chu Xiu winning. Chu Yuansheng was also standing on top of the city wall. He had a worried look on his face as he looked at Chu Xiu and said, "You said that you wouldn't lie to me. What is going on now?" This is a grudge between the Yinma clan and the orthodox sections. In the end, the entire Guanzhong torture room has been dragged into this. If you lose, the entire Guanzhong torture room will be destroyed. Chu Xiu said calmly, "Brother Chu, don't be silly. Don't you understand? The time for the Guanzhong torture room to be neutral has passed. The Guanzhong torture room needs to find a backer. It's either righteous or demonic. Even if I'm not in the Guanzhong torture room, without hall leader Guan, do you think the Guanzhong torture room can protect its foundation?" In the end, he still had to choose a side. "Brother Chu, do you really not know whether to rely on me or those righteous sects? Others may not know what happened to Lord Chu Kuanga back then, but don't tell me you don't know." Chu Yuansheng sat down dejectedly, because he was very familiar with the conduct of those righteous sections. Among the people that Chu Kuanga had offended in the past, there were actually more righteous sects than demonic sections. In the past, the Hidden Devil clan kept a low profile and almost never clashed with Chu Kuanga. The Bright Demon clan was not very high profile. Under the suppression of the entire orthodox martial world, they were almost not arrogant enough to cause trouble all day long. Only those so-called righteous sects had done a lot of arrogant and domineering things, taking advantage of their power to bully others. Chu Kuanga had either stopped them or clashed with them, and the two sides had formed a lot of hatred. "Are you sure you can survive this?" Chu Yuansheng looked at Chu Xiu with hope in his eyes. At this time, he somewhat regretted taking over the position of Hall Master. In fact, to put it bluntly, Chu Yuansheng was not bad in nature, but he was a little arrogant and had little ambition. If Chu Xiu had not used the heart demon rotation technique to influence Chu Yuansheng would not have agreed to take over the position of Hall Master. If not for the position of Hall Master, he could have left the Guanzhong torture room with his family property, but now he had to accompany Chu Xiu to wait for death. This feeling was not good. Looking ahead, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Confidence? Except for God, no one dares to say that they have absolute confidence in everything they do." Just as Chu Yuansheng was about to say something, the martial artist standing on the city walls suddenly shouted nervously, "They're here." Everyone was shocked and quickly looked down. However, to their surprise, there were only dozens of Daoist priests, and they were not from the Eastern Qi Alliance. This time, the person who brought the people was Su Yangzi of the Chunyang Dao sect. He did not wait for the people from the Eastern Qi Alliance to come with him at all. Instead, he came alone with his people. Seeing this scene, even Chu Xiu had a strange expression on his face. He had seen stupid people, but he had never seen someone as stupid as Su Yangzi. He actually did not care about the faces of so many forces in the Eastern Qi Alliance and came first with his people. Did he mean that the forces in the Eastern Qi Alliance were not worthy of being on his side? Moreover, it was unknown whether Su Yangzi was arrogant or conceited. He thought that he, a martial Dao master, and dozens of disciples of the Chunyang Dao sect could destroy the Guanzhong torture room and kill him, Chu Xiu? What a joke! Su Yangzi looked at Chu Xiu, who was standing on the city wall, with a flash of a complicated expression in his eyes. His senior brother had died in the hands of this junior, and his reputation had been ruined. Naturally, Su Yangzi wanted to swallow Chu Xiu alive. However, the Chunyang Dao sect had been exterminating demons and defending the Dao for so many years, even at the expense of their own strength. In the end, after Zhen Yangzi died, most people in the underworld were only gloating. This made Su Yangzi feel a little disappointed. He did not know whether what he had done all these years was right or wrong. However, Su Yangzi soon threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. He looked at Chu Xiu, who was on the city wall, and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, you know what kind of situation you're in now. Today, I'm not here on behalf of the Chunyang Dao sect to exterminate demons and defend the Dao. I'm only here to settle my personal grudge. Senior brother Zhen Yangzi died in your hands. Today, do you dare to fight with me and settle the grudge? If you win, the grudge between you and the Chunyang Dao sect will no longer have anything to do with you. This time, the Eastern Qi Alliance attacked you, and the Chunyang Dao sect will not intervene. If you lose, there's naturally no need to say anything. The current you can't afford to lose. Do you dare to fight with me?" Su Yangzi shook off the Eastern Qi Alliance and came to find trouble with Chu Xiu alone. In fact, it was not because he did not know what was going on and came to seek his own death. Naturally, he had his own plans. In the past, Zhen Yangzi was killed by Chu Xiu in Xiaofang Tian, which also caused the reputation of the Chunyang Dao sect to plummet in the Jianghu. People said that the martial Dao masters of the Chunyang Dao sect were not even comparable to the junior martial artists. They completely ignored the fact that Zhen Yangzi was actually killed by Chu Xiu and Li Feilian. Therefore, this time, Su Yangzi not only wanted to take revenge for his senior brother, but he also wanted to use this matter to restore the reputation of the Chunyang Dao sect. Didn't you say that the martial Dao masters of the Chunyang Dao sect were not as good as the junior martial artists? In that case, he would defeat Chu Xiu one-on-one in front of everyone. This way, it would be better than any rebuttal. Therefore, the question now was whether Chu Xiu would agree or not. In Su Yangzi's opinion, Chu Xiu would agree. If Chu Xiu agreed now, it would be enough for him to face him alone. If he did not agree and the Chunyang Dao sect joined the Eastern Qi Alliance, Chu Xiu would have to face more opponents. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes as he looked at Master Su Yangzi and suddenly burst into laughter. Su Yangzi frowned and said, "What are you laughing at? Are you going to agree or not?" Chu Xiu laughed and said, "I'm just laughing at some people for taking it for granted. Su Yangzi, the people of the Chunyang Dao sect are not good at using their brains. Since you're not good at this, don't use it. Otherwise, you'll only make a fool of yourself. Are you going to defeat me on the spot and clear the name of the Chunyang Dao sect? Su Yangzi frowned even more. It seemed that he did not expect his thoughts to be seen through by Chu Xiu so easily. Reality proved that the length of one's life had nothing to do with how smart one's brain was. People like Su Yangzi had grown up in the pure Yang Dao sect since he was young, so he had already developed a simple and direct personality. He was still too inexperienced to play mind games with Chu Xiu, who had been at the bottom of the Jianghu. Su Yangzi snorted and said, "So what if I am? You don't dare to agree?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Why should I agree? Su Yangzi, since you came here alone to court death, don't blame me. Attack!" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's figure landed on the city wall. Then, phaseless demon sects Mr. Lu, Chu Wuji, Mei Qinglian, and the others attacked Su Yangzi one after another. In an instant, a monstrous demonic aura rushed into the sky. Su Yangzi's expression suddenly changed and he said, "Chu Xiu. By doing this, aren't you afraid that you will fight to the death with the Chunyang Dao sect?" Chu Xiu just snorted and did not say anything. Ever since he killed Jin Yangzi, he and the Chunyang Dao sect had become mortal enemies. Even if he really finished off Su Yangzi one-on-one and Su Yangzi kept his promise, it did not mean that the other people from the Chunyang Dao sect would keep their promise like Su Yangzi and not look for trouble with him. Therefore, once the people from the Chunyang Dao sect looked for trouble with Chu Xiu's personality, he would definitely not back down. At that time, they would become mortal enemies again. Therefore, it was better to kill them now. Su Yangzi fiercely gritted his teeth and the pure yang energy around his body exploded. The pure yang Dao sword in his hand shone with a dazzling light and a majestic blood qi was integrated into the Dao sword. He wanted to fight to the death with Chu Xiu and the others. However, on Chu Xiu's side, the three people were not weak martial Dao masters. Chu Xiu's strength was even higher than that of a martial Dao master. The moment they exchanged blows, the pure Yang Dao sword had already been forcefully shattered. However, at this moment, a dazzling sword light suddenly fell. The extremely hot pure Yang sword qi extinguished everything. The monstrous demonic flames were like melting snow under the pure Yang sword qi, extinguishing them one after another. Chu Wuji, Mr. Lu, and Mei Qinglian were all martial artists who only cultivated demonic techniques. Therefore, the pure Yang sword qi was extremely lethal to them and actually forced them to retreat. Only Chu Xiu could resist for a while because he cultivated the secret techniques of Taoism, Buddhism, and demonic Tao. However, he was also forced back by the pure Yang sword qi. In front of Su Yangzi, a sloppy middle-aged Taoist was holding a simple longsword with Tao patterns engraved on it. He stood there lazily and smiled at Su Yangzi. "Martial nephew Su Yangzi, what did I say? Your glabella is dark, and I'm afraid it's a bad omen. I'm very worried about you, so I specially invited the Patriarch's pure Yang sword to save you. How about it? Are you touched?" Chapter 657. Su Yangzi looked at Shi Yunzi in front of him with a dumbfounded expression. He said hesitantly, "Shi Yunzi. Martial uncle, why are you here? And your strength?" The Shi Yunzi in front of him was like a different person from the Shi Yunzi in his memory. Although his appearance and personality were exactly the same, the Shi Yunzi in front of him was already at the peak of real pellet state, far beyond him. There was also the pure Yang sword in Shi Yunzi's hand. This sword seemed to be simple and unadorned, and there was nothing special about it. However, this sword was the sword of the former Chunyang Dao sect's founder, Lu Chunyang. It was ranked 5th in the Jianghu's famous sword manual. It required extremely pure Yang aura to be used. In the Chunyang Dao sect, only the current Chunyang Dao sect's leader was qualified to use the pure yang sword. Su Yangzi never expected that Shi Yunzi could also use the pure yang Dao sword. Looking at the shocked Su Yangzi, Shi Yunzi said calmly, "I say, martial nephew Su Yangzi, do you really think that my cheap master took me in as his disciple before he died just because he thought I was smart, straightforward, and adorable? No matter what, I have called you my nephew for so many years. At critical moments, you still need to rely on me to support you." Chu Wuji looked at Shi Yunzi and said in a deep voice, "It is said that the previous Chunyang Dao sect's leader found a genius with a natural pure Yang Dao body and accepted him as a disciple, but there has been no news. That person should be you, right? Your pure Yang Dao sect's lineage is really lucky. You've clearly declined, yet you can still find an existence like you." Shi Yunzi shook his head and said, "Even the sun and the moon have their ups and downs, let alone a sect. I think it's my fortune that my cheap master accepted me. At least I don't have to be a servant who serves tea and drinks for others all day long. Of course, other than the fact that I can't get close to women and break my primordial Yang Dao body, I'm actually living quite comfortably in Chunyang Dao sect." Shi Yunzi turned his gaze to Chu Xiu and sighed, "I have no enmity with you, nor do I have any enmity with your lurking demon clan. However, as a member of the pure Yang Dao sect, the sect's enmity naturally becomes my enmity. I was too lazy to make a move, but now that I have appeared here with the pure Yang sword, let's put an end to this matter. The people of the pure Yang Dao sect can't die in vain. Although Zhenyang Zi is indeed stubborn, he is still a member of the pure Yang Dao sect. Chu Xiu, even if you don't believe what Su Yangzi said just now, you can fight with me now. With my position in the pure Yang Dao sect, no one will go against what I said." Shi Yunzi spread his hands and said, "Then I'll tell senior brother sect leader. How can he not know how to respect the old and cherish the young?" Shi Yunzi shrugged and said, "Then I'll tell senior martial brother sect master. What can we do if he doesn't know how to respect the old and love the young?" Shi Yunzi spread his hands and said, "Then I'll tell senior brother sect leader. How can he not know how to respect the old and cherish the young?" This person seemed a little unruly, but his strength was unfathomable. Although he was pressuring them step by step, he actually did not have much killing intent. Shi Yunzi seemed a little unruly, but his strength was unfathomable. Even though he was pressuring them, he actually didn't have much of a murderous intent. While Chu Xiu was thinking, a large number of martial artists appeared on the official road outside Guangzhou City. As some of them were mobilized, there were at least tens of thousands of martial artists, and they directly surrounded the Guangzhou torture room. Just as Chu Xiu was pondering this, a large number of cultivators appeared on the official road outside Guangzhou City. Furthermore, as some of them were mobilized, they were densely packed together. There were at least tens of thousands of cultivators surrounding the Guangzhou Disciplinary Hall. Just as Chu Xiu was thinking, a large number of martial artists appeared on the official road outside Guangzhou City. As some of them were mobilized, there were at least tens of thousands of martial artists, and they directly surrounded the Guangzhou torture room. Shi Yunzi spread his hands casually and said, "Look, even if you want to agree now, I'm afraid you can't." Xiahozhen didn't care so much at this time. He directly shouted, "Surround Guangzhou City. Don't let a single demon go." Xiahozhen's ability to organize was quite good. The martial artists who came to participate in the alliance were reorganized into small teams by him. At this time, when he gave the order, it was very orderly. Of course, he could only order people from the Xiahou clan and some martial artists from small forces. As for people like Qing Tingshan and the others, even if he wanted to order them, they couldn't. Of course, he could only order the people on the Xiahou clan side and some warriors from smaller forces. As for people like Qing Tingshan and the others, even if he wanted to, he could not order them. He had always thought that his son died in the hands of Lin Yi of the Immortal clan, but he couldn't find anyone to take revenge on, so he could only give up. He had always thought that his son had died in the hands of Lin Yi of the Immortal clan, but he couldn't find anyone to take revenge on, so he could only give up. It was not until Chu Xiu's identity was exposed that he realized that his enemy was actually so close to him. However, Xia Hozhen wasn't Nie Renlong. His heart was much harder than Nie Renlong's. Although Xiahou Wujiang was the most outstanding of his son's death was still not as important as his own power. This time, he put in so much effort to launch the Eastern Qi Alliance. In fact, 99% of the reason was because he wanted to enhance his reputation and position in the Xiahou clan. Revenge for his son was only a very small part of it. Xia Hozhen stood up and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, when you were running amok and killing innocent people in the past, did you ever think that you would have such a day? The cycle of cause and effect, retribution. Now, your retribution has come." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Xia Hozhen, you people always like to do these hypocritical things before the battle starts. You put yourself above righteousness and make it seem like you're so noble. In fact, everyone has done a lot of dirty things. Xia Hozhen, do you dare to slap your conscience and say that you haven't done a single evil thing? Ridiculous." Xia Hozhen sneered, "You have a sharp tongue." After saying that, Xia Hozhen directly turned his eyes to Chu Wuji and said in a deep voice, "For so many years, your Yinma clan has been hiding in the dark. Everyone has minded their own business. But this time, Chu Xiu has gone too far. The righteous martial arts world will definitely not tolerate it. Chu Wuji, you are an understanding person. Hand over Chu Xiu and your Yinma clan will withdraw from the Guanzhong torture hall. Everyone will still mind their own business. Otherwise, your Yinma clan has been recuperating for such a long time. I'm afraid that this time, your vitality will be greatly damaged." Shi Yunzi, who was standing to the side, also leaned on the pure yang sword and said with a smile, "That's right. Fighting and killing are quite boring. Why don't we all sit down, drink some wine, and have a good discussion?" Everyone present looked at Shi Yunzi with a strange expression. Where did this weirdo come from? Even in Chunyang Dao sect, apart from the current sect master of Chunyang Dao sect, no one knew about Shi Yunzi's background, let alone outsiders. Even Chu Wuji had only vaguely heard some rumors, but he did not know Shi Yunzi's name. However, although the people present did not know Shi Yunzi's background, a martial Dao master of Chunyang Dao sect would definitely not be a weakling. Su Yangzi's eyebrows twitched at the side. If Shi Yunzi had not displayed his extremely powerful strength and saved him just now, he would even have the heart to curse now. Now, Shi Yunzi's behavior was simply a disgrace to the Chunyang Dao sect. That was Chunyang Dao sect's most precious divine weapon, the pure yang sword, which was ranked 5th in the world-famous sword manual. In the end, it was being used as a crutch by Shi Yunzi. What a scandal! Xia Hozhen glanced at Shi Yunzi. He did not understand this guy's background, so he did not pay attention to him. He asked the Yinma clan to hand over Chu Xiu not because he did not want to fight and kill, but because he did not want to suffer too heavy a loss on his side. After all, although they were in an alliance, most of them were disciples of the Xiahou clan. Moreover, Xia Hozhen also wanted to gain a reputation of subduing the enemy without fighting. Chu Wuji chuckled and said, "I'm indeed a sensible person. Because I'm a sensible person, I know that this time, the Yinma clan cannot retreat, and will not retreat. Since when did the people of Jianghu have the impression that the Yinma clan must lurk in the dark to survive? Xia Hozhen, you should know that this matter has not been between you and Chu Xiu from the beginning. It involves the entire Yinma clan. Do you think I will retreat?" Chu Xiu stepped forward and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said, "Xia Hozhen, don't talk nonsense. You are too slow. I have been waiting for you for a long time. If I had known that you were so slow, I would have personally led people to Eastern Qi to find you." Chu Xiu pointed at his head and sneered. "Don't all of you want to kill me, Chu Xiu? My head is right here. I'd like to see who has the life to take it. Before Xiahozhen could say anything, a person beside him stepped forward and said coldly, "I'll take it." In an instant, the whistling sword qi exploded, turning into a sky full of swordwill that danced and circled around Shenbai's body. As he walked towards Chu Xiu, the sword qi directly crushed down. Seeing Shenbai's sudden attack, Xiahozhen was caught off guard. However, the Immortal clan did not retreat. They had no other choice but to fight. Therefore, Xiahozhen waved his hand and shouted in a low voice, "Attack!" As soon as he finished speaking, the warriors beside him had already rushed forward. At the same time, the city gates of Guanzhong opened wide. The warriors belonging to the hidden devil lineage and Chu Xiu's subordinates were all mobilized to meet the enemy without fear of death. However, the Immortal clan and Chu Xiu's side had already begun to show signs of weakness. They seemed to be unable to resist. Originally, there were many people in the Guanzhong torture room. However, there were not many people who were truly loyal to Chu Xiu and would die for him. Therefore, Chu Xiu could only transfer the others to other places in Guanzhong to guard. Only his trusted aides were left, but they were still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers and strength. Chapter 658. Shenbai had a deep hatred for Chu Xiu, but Chu Xiu did not have much of an impression of Shenbai. Ever since he stepped into the Jianghu, the number of people who had died in his hands was uncountable, let alone Shenbai, who had been crippled by him after just one attack. Therefore, it was not until Shenbai stood up and attacked that Chu Xiu was stunned for a moment before he realized who Shenbai was. At the same time, a look of surprise appeared on his face. In the past, he had crippled Shenbai, but in the end, not only did Shenbai recover his cultivation after such a short period of time, but he had also mastered such a powerful sword technique. How did he do it? Chu Xiu did not have time to investigate further. Endless Buddhist light burst out from his body, and the golden Buddhist light was as hot as fire, releasing endless power. The shadow of Vairocana appeared behind Chu Xiu, and the Buddhist light illuminated the world. Sun-switching technique. The sound of Buddhist chanting rang out, and the endless Buddhist light came. The sword qi melted, and it was all blocked by the Buddhist light. The boundless majesty even caused the expression of the smiling Maitreya monk below to change. He even thought that he was facing the first seat of the Great Light Temple's 6 great martial academies. In the face of a pure strength martial technique like the sun-switching technique, Shenbai's expression did not change, but his heart was faintly shaken, and there was a look of shock in his eyes. After just one exchange, he had already discovered that in terms of strength, he was not as good as Chu Xiu. A sword technique like the 10,000 ancestral swords was indeed extremely strong, and he had comprehended it by chance. However, he was only at the entry level, and he was still far from mastering it. However, no matter how strong a martial technique was, it still needed strength to support it. With the 10,000 ancestral swords, his instantaneous explosive power was enough to instantly kill a new martial arts master like Su Beigui, but it could not deal with people with strong strength. Chu Xiu took a step forward, and the Buddhist light around him dissipated. He casually pointed out with a finger, and the Buddhist light turned into demonic energy. The immortal slaughtering finger descended, and black ripples appeared in the void. Everywhere it passed, even the chi of heaven and earth was extinguished by the extreme killing intent. The fogbow sword stretched out, and countless sword chis circled and danced around Shenbai. They were so densely packed that even Shenbai's figure could not be seen. They blocked in front of him, helping him to block the power of Chu Xiu's finger. The 10,000 swords returned to origin and the myriad of sword skills combined into one, creating endless transformations. However, under Chu Xiu's power, the countless sword chis were constantly being melted away by the nirvana finger. Shenbai frowned deeply. This was completely different from what he had imagined. Chu Xiu's strength had somewhat exceeded his expectations. He had been in closed-door training for such a long time, and Chu Xiu, a former opponent, had obtained even more power than he had in the Jianghu. At this moment, when Shunbai was facing Chu Xiu, he even felt a sense of helplessness like when Chu Xiu was facing Zhong Xian in the past. Back when Chu Xiu fought with Zhong Xian, Chu Xiu could rely on his powerful martial skills and explosive power to fight evenly with Zhong Xian in the early stages. However, in the later stages, with Zhong Xian's profound foundation of power, he could forcibly drag Chu Xiu to death. Now, when Shunbai was facing Chu Xiu, he was in an even more disadvantageous position. Chu Xiu's foundation of power was more profound than his, but his explosive power was not any weaker. The sword intent around Shunbai's body was raised to the limit. 10,000 strands of sword chi spiraled around him, and every strand of sword chi contained the might of the way of the sword that Shunbai had bestowed upon him. For a moment, he was evenly matched with Chu Xiu. At this moment, the people below were also fighting fiercely. Chu Wuji was the first to make a move, standing in front of Shi Yunzi. This person's power was unfathomable, and the only person present who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him in terms of cultivation was Chu Wuji. Moreover, Shi Yunzi was holding the pure yang sword in his hand, and he posed the greatest threat among all the people present. Looking at Chu Wuji, who was charging at him with a murderous aura, Shi Yunzi shook his head helplessly and said, "I'm just here to watch the show. Why are you targeting me?" However, even though he said that, he still held the pure yang sword in his hand and charged at Chu Wuji. Mr. Liu followed closely behind Chu Xiu to block Zhen Yangzi, while Mei Qinglian faced Xiahou Zhen. Xiahou Shi's spirit control art was extremely evil, but it was completely suppressed by Mei Qinglian's great beauty art. She could not unleash much of its power at all. Lu Hongye, who was hiding in the dark, launched a sneak attack on Cheng Tingshan, but she was suppressed by Cheng Tingshan with several moves, and was immediately at a disadvantage. Speaking of which, Lu Hongye was the most unlucky one among Chu Xiu's subordinates. Although he was a newly advanced martial Dao master, he was not the kind of person who was particularly weak. However, among the people Chu Xiu had offended, almost none of them were weak. They were all martial arts grandmasters from large sects, and some were even famous figures on the Fengyun list. This made things very awkward for Lu Hongye. He could barely defeat any of them. It would be good enough if he could guarantee that he would not die, let alone help Chu Xiu. On the other hand, there were many people from the Eastern Qi sect. Wang Shuangjuan and Qi Jian, who represented the crown prince, looked at each other and directly charged at Chu Xiu. How could the three of them be no match for Chu Xiu when they worked together? The two long swords on Wang Shuangjuan's back shone with a scorching yang aura. Different from the pure yang qi of the Chunyang Dao sect, the sword qi on Wang Shuangjuan's long swords was mixed with a trace of heat, and the power to suppress demons and kill evil was also extremely powerful. Qi Jian pinched a Buddhist seal with his hand, and thousands of rays of Buddhist light burst out, turning into a handprint, and slapped at Chu Xiu. One of them was Shunbai, who was no weaker than a martial arts grandmaster, and the other two were not unknown in the Jianghu. The pressure on Chu Xiu instantly increased to the extreme. It was a joke in the Jianghu that martial arts grandmasters besieged a martial artist at the oneness of heaven and men realm. However, based on what Chu Xiu had done, who would really regard him as a martial artist at the oneness of heaven and men realm? Therefore, Wang Shuangjuan and the others did not feel the slightest burden when they attacked. In an instant, instead of retreating, Chu Xiu advanced. The human puppet appeared in front of Qi Jian, and the incarnation of the hungry ghost Dao crawled out. It opened its mouth, and the power of the hungry ghost devoured everything. The endless Buddhist light was swallowed into its mouth. Not only was it not affected, but the incarnation of the hungry ghost Dao even burped, and it looked at Qi Jian even more greedily. At the same time, Chu Xiu performed the mental demon rotation technique to the extreme. The soul-suppressing Hades song was played, and waves of evil power rushed at Wang Shuangjuan and Shunbai, causing them to groan and slow down. Neither of them had cultivated primordial soul secret techniques, so their resistance to primordial soul secret techniques like the soul-suppressing Hades song was weaker. Taking advantage of this moment of delay, Chu Xiu pinched the formless sealing handprint, and the universe reversed. Under the handprint, everything was twisting and spinning. The ring turned into Mount Meru, the universe, and the 5 skandhas were all empty. Within the formless sealing handprint, all power dissipated. From Chu Xiu's point of view, he had expended a lot of energy to attack just now. However, from the perspective of others, it had only been a short moment. In reality, however, it had been extremely dangerous. After repelling 3 people at the same time, just as Chu Xiu was about to heave a sigh of relief, a ripple appeared in the air. It was a very small ripple, but Chu Xiu suddenly noticed it. In that instant, Chu Xiu did not hesitate. He used the heaven's sun gazing at air to the extreme. What he saw was a shockingly powerful sword qi. No one could have imagined that such a powerful sword qi would actually be hidden under such a seemingly inconspicuous and weak fluctuation. If it wasn't for Chu Xiu's incomparably sensitive perception and the heaven's sun gazing at air, he would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. Just as Chu Xiu was about to use the speed of the internal binding handprint to dodge in advance, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the sword qi. The long sword lightly pointed, as if to break a surface. The tip of the sword shattered the ripple in the void. In an instant, the sword qi was like a mirror, shattering with a loud bang. The figure in front of the sword qi was Fang Qi Shao, who was holding a long sword and had a rare solemn expression on his face. An angry voice said, "Fang Qi Shao. What the hell do you want? The sect has already confined you, yet you still dare to run out?" The head of the Xingjian Hall of Sword King City, Invisible Sword Bai Qian, appeared from the side with an angry face. In Jianghu, only Bai Qian's invisible sword could be so dangerous. The sword qi was hidden in the void, making it impossible for people to detect it. If it wasn't for Chu Xiu's sun gazing at air, this invisible sword would have fallen on his body before Chu Xiu could have noticed it. Sword King City itself had enmity with Chu Xiu. Among the disciples of Sword King City, Great Light Sword Fei Mo, who was on the Longhu list in the previous generation, had been crippled by Chu Xiu. After all, Fang Qi Shao and Chu Xiu had become friends. Although Sword King City was overbearing, they would still give Chu Xiu face and let this matter pass. However, Chu Xiu had openly killed Lin Kaiyun in front of everyone in the minor fan heaven. This was something that Sword King City absolutely could not tolerate. Putting aside the fact that Lin Kaiyun was an outstanding figure in Sword King City, second only to 7th Young Master Fang, just the fact that Chu Xiu had repeatedly killed the people of Sword King City was something that Sword King City could not tolerate. Given Sword King City's style of doing things, they didn't care whether Lin Kaiyun wanted to kill Chu Xiu first and was killed by Chu Xiu. According to Sword King City's way of doing things, even if Chu Xiu was the victim, he couldn't kill Lin Kaiyun first. It was up to Sword King City to decide whether Lin Kaiyun should be killed or punished for his crimes. Chu Xiu was not qualified to judge him. However, Sword King City had encountered some problems after the minor fan heaven, so they hadn't had the time to look for trouble with Chu Xiu. Moreover, Fang Qi Shao had also been secretly obstructing them, so Sword King City had put this matter aside for the time being. However, Chu Xiu's identity had been exposed this time, which was equivalent to courting death. Sword King City had no reason to not take action. Although Fang Qi Shao had also been involved this time, Sword King City couldn't let Fang Qi Shao do as he pleased. Therefore, Sword King City had directly punished Fang Qi Shao with confinement. Before this matter was resolved, Fang Qi Shao was not allowed to come out of seclusion. However, Bai Qian hadn't expected that Fang Qi Shao would dare to disobey the sect's order and come out of seclusion to stop Chu Xiu. Chapter 659. Fang Qi Shao stood in front of Bai Qian. Actually, he was also very conflicted. He didn't have many friends, but Chu Xiu was one of them. Therefore, Fang Qishao really didn't want Chu Xiu to have a conflict with Sword King City. If an ordinary small sect had a disciple like Fang Qishao, then they would definitely listen to Fang Qishao's orders. This small grudge could be completely forgotten. But what kind of sect was Sword King City? It was one of the 5 great sword sects that had dominated the Western Desert for over 1,000 years. It even had the strength to contend for the position of the leader of the 5 great sword sections. The sect had countless experts. For a sect like Sword King City, face was very important. Sword King City could listen to Fang Qishao as much as possible in trivial matters. However, Fang Qishao's words weren't very useful when it came to matters related to Sword King City's face. Sword King City had confined Fang Qishao because they were afraid that he would fall into a dilemma. However, they hadn't expected that Fang Qishao would still come. Looking at Bai Qian, Fang Qishao shook his head and said, "Seat Chief, I won't talk about right and wrong. If you make a move against Brother Chu and he doesn't die, then he will definitely become a great enemy of Sword King City in the future. I don't understand one thing. Is it worth it to make a great enemy for the sake of face? You've seen Brother Chu's strength and potential. Whether it's a friend or an enemy, I dare say that his future achievements won't be any weaker than Zhang Chengzhen." Bai Qian said coldly, "So what? If you hadn't stopped him, Chu Xiu would have died a long time ago. How could he have a future?" Fang Qishao smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chu won't die. Seat Chief, please stop. Just give me face, alright?" Others might not know about the heaven's sun gazing at air, but Fang Qishao, who also cultivated the karma sword Dao, knew about it. Even if he hadn't intercepted Bai Qian's sword earlier, Chu Xiu would still have been able to dodge it by relying on his strange Dao of karma cultivation technique. Fang Qishao had taken the initiative to intercept Bai Qian because he wanted to smooth things over. Now that he had helped Chu Xiu stop Bai Qian, this matter would be over, and Sword King City would have one less enemy in the future. Although Fang Qishao was usually unruly, it didn't mean that he didn't understand the ways of the world. However, it seemed like Bai Qian didn't see through his hidden meaning. He thought Bai Qian was protecting Chu Xiu. In fact, Fang Qishao was also protecting Sword King City. After cultivating the karma sword Dao for such a long time, although Fang Qishao didn't know anything about divination, he had a vague understanding of karma. Or perhaps it could be said that it was a very strange feeling. Since Shenbai came out of seclusion and saw the hypocrisy of the world and the death of his master, his mentality had changed a lot. If it was the previous Shenbai, he would definitely seek revenge on Chu Xiu after coming out of seclusion. He would fight one-on-one fairly and kill Chu Xiu to wash away the humiliation. But now, Shenbai only cared about the results and didn't care about the process. As long as he could kill Chu Xiu and help Azure Wave Sword Sect gain prestige, he didn't mind besieging Chu Xiu. Bai Qian frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Fang Qishao said in a solemn voice, "I'll go have a one-on-one battle with Brother Chu. Regardless of victory or defeat, this matter will be considered completely settled." Bai Qian frowned and said, "You want to go easy?" Fang Qishao's expression was solemn as he said, "Seat Master, don't worry. I won't go easy on this kind of thing. If I have the slightest bit of mercy, can't Chief Master still not see it?" Seeing Fang Qishao's appearance, Bai Qian could only nod and said, "All right, as you wish then." In fact, Bai Qian was still more willing to make a move directly and kill Chu Xiu. It wasn't that he didn't care about the reputation of bullying the weak, but in this kind of situation, no one would treat Chu Xiu as a junior martial artist. However, looking at Fang Qishao's current intentions, if Bai Qian insisted on making a move, Fang Qishao might cause some trouble. So, Bai Qian decided to just let him be. Bai Qian had watched Fang Qishao grow up in Sword King City, so he knew what kind of character Fang Qishao had. On the surface, Fang Qixiao was always laughing and joking all day long. He didn't even have the dignity of a eldest senior brother in Sword King City. However, once he became serious, he would be stubborn to the extreme, and even 9 bulls couldn't pull him back. Wang Shuangjuan and the others frowned. Fang Qixiao wanted to fight Chu Xiu. However, it didn't matter. Their goal was to kill Chu Xiu and destroy the Guanzhong torture room. If they couldn't kill Chu Xiu for the time being, then they could just kill someone else. Therefore, Wang Shuangjuan and the others subconsciously looked in the direction of Chu Wuji's group, ready to lend a hand. But at this time, Fang Qixiao suddenly said, "First seat, help me stop them. If I say it's fair, then it must be fair. If they go to deal with someone else and cause Chu Xiu to be distracted, then wouldn't I become an accomplice? That's not fair." Bai Qian nodded indifferently. Sword King City's position wasn't that firm. From the beginning, Sword King City didn't come here to kill devil. It was purely to resolve personal grievances. The fate of the Yinma clan and the existence of the Guanzhong torture room weren't Sword King City's concern. Wang Shuangjuan angrily said, "Isn't your Sword King City a bit too overbearing? You won't kill Chu Xiu, but you won't allow us to kill other Devil Dao villains?" Bai Qian sneered and said, "Are you the first person to know that my Sword King City is overbearing? If you think you have the strength to challenge Sword King City, then fine, I'll accompany you. Just now, Chu Xiu fought 1 against 3. I also want to see what it feels like to fight 1 against 3. Wang Shuangjuan and Qi Jian's faces turned red with anger. As Sword King City's first seat, Bai Qian naturally wasn't weak. But they weren't nobodies either, so they might be able to defeat him. But the other side had used Sword King City to suppress them. That was a bit too shameless. Unfortunately, they didn't dare to challenge Sword King City. Turning around, Fang Qixiao looked at Chu Xiu and sighed. But then he smiled and said, "Brother Chu, you should know that I've wanted to fight you for a long time. After all, there are only a few people in Jianghu who have cultivated Karma Dao to our level. I'm not familiar with Li Feilian. Moreover, his throwing knives are meant to take people's lives when they leave their sheaths. But I'm too familiar with you, so I'm too embarrassed to fight him. But now I finally have the chance." Fang Qixiao unsheathed his sword and looked at Chu Xiu with a solemn expression, "Brother Chu, I won't hold back this time." Holding the heavenly demon dance in his hand, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Me too." Everyone had a competitive heart. Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao were indeed friends, but that didn't mean that they didn't have such competitive hearts. Friends like Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu, whose strength was much lower than Chu Xiu's, were convinced by Chu Xiu. But Fang Qixiao was different. Fang Qixiao was happy for Chu Xiu that he could reach his current strength, but at the same time, Fang Qixiao didn't think that he was weaker than Chu Xiu. Fang Qixiao stabbed out with his sword. Although his sword seemed light, every time it vibrated, it seemed to conform to some kind of law between heaven and earth. With a light tap of his sword, Chu Xiu instantly felt as though his surroundings had been locked down. Everything in the world was a sword. No matter which direction he attacked from, the force of the sword would rain down like a torrential storm. After not seeing him for a long time, Fang Qixiao's sword Dao had taken another step forward. Chapter 660. Ever since Xiaofan Tian, Fang Qixiao did not continue to roam the underworld. Instead, he chose to return to Sword King City to cultivate in seclusion. Xiaofan Tian was an opportunity for a young warrior like Chu Xiu. It was an opportunity for his strength to advance by leaps and bounds. Not only had Chu Xiu obtained great benefits from Xiaofan Tian, but Fang Qixiao had also benefited a lot from it. Fang Qixiao's comprehension of the Tao of Karma had not only increased greatly, but the most obvious improvement was in his control of power. There was no sword qi in the surroundings, but as long as Chu Xiu moved, he would immediately fall into the endless roar of sword qi. Even Shenbai stared unblinkingly at the seventh young Master Fang's attack. To him, this was also a realm that he could not reach. Although Shenbai had learned the ancestral innumerable swords, he had only achieved minor success. The reason why he had such strength now was mostly due to the ancestral innumerable swords. He was not like the seventh young Master Fang, who had an extreme understanding of swordsmanship. Before Shenbai came out to roam the underworld and was crippled by Chu Xiu, Fang Qi Xiao was already the strongest among the young generation in Sword King City. Even among the young generation in the underworld, if he said he was the second strongest, no one would dare to say they were the first. At this moment, no one in the young generation could surpass him in the sword principle. Chu Xiu stared at Fang Qi Xiao and suddenly smiled. "Brother Fang, don't blame me for not reminding you. When it comes to a real fight, my trump card has never been heaven's sun gazing at air. I'm afraid you will be disappointed if you only want to experience my heaven's sun gazing at air." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's hands quickly formed seals. The seals of the fast and slow 9 words formula were formed by him in an instant. They were almost like afterimages, and their speed was extremely fast. The 9 seals combined into one, and boundless Buddhist light bloomed around Chu Xiu. The radiance was dazzling, and the 9 great seals were like a wheel, spinning around Chu Xiu's body without stopping, crushing down on 7th young Master Fang. In an instant, countless strands of sword qi burst out, but they were all shattered by the power of the 9 seals fusing into one. Fang Qi Xiao's longsword lightly tapped out, each sword strike locking onto the weakest spot of Chu Xiu's seal arts. Karma was intertwined, and each sword strike shattered a seal art. The 9 seals were unleashed at the same time. Fang Qi Xiao's sword of karma was unleashed to the extreme, and he shattered the 9 seals in a row. However, his hands were trembling slightly. Looking at Chu Xiu in shock, Fang Qi Xiao said gloomily, "You learned from Zhongxian." "No. You're even more abnormal than Zhongxian." In the past, when Fang Qi Xiao was ranked 3rd on the Longhu leaderboard, he had actually fought with both Zhang Qingzhen and Zhongxian. There was no need to mention Zhang Qingzhen, as he was a monster among monsters. To be able to use extreme speed and technique to break the sword of karma, Zhang Qingzhen was probably the only one in the entire pugilistic world who could do that. As for Zhongxian, Fang Qi Xiao was feeling very helpless. Fang Qi Xiao's sword of karma could indeed pierce Zhongxian, to the extent that Zhongxian could not be bothered to block or defend himself. However, even if they were to clash head-on with brute force, and even to the extent of exchanging injuries for injuries, Fang Qi Xiao was still beaten to a pulp. If he were to pierce Zhongxian with his sword, Zhongxian might be fine. However, if he were to be hit by Zhongxian's Wisdom King seal, he would probably vomit blood on the spot. Now that he was facing Chu Xiu, Fang Qi Xiao had a feeling that he was facing a strengthened version of Zhongxian. Not only was his defense extremely shocking, but his explosive power was also extremely strong. Chu Xiu smiled and did not say anything. In an instant, the Buddhist light turned into a torrential demonic aura. He slashed out with the heaven demon dance in his hand, filled with hatred. The demonic devoured the world. The power of the hatred saber was almost completely controlled by Chu Xiu. Other than the fact that it could not be like the real hatred saber, which could affect the opponent's hatred intensely, its power was almost the same as the real hatred saber. However, Chu Xiu did not need to use his mental strength to suppress it, so the consumption was very low. As Fang Qi Xiao stabbed out with his sword, there seemed to be an indescribable connection between him and Chu Xiu's saber. No matter where Chu Xiu's saber slashed at, it seemed like it could be blocked by Fang Qi Xiao. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu's eyes suddenly shone with a divine light. The power of the heaven's sun gazing at air was also unleashed by him to the extreme. In an instant, Fang Qi Xiao's longsword stopped abruptly. The karmic connection had been completely messed up by Chu Xiu. using the Tao of karma to fight against karma was the best way to deal with it. Fang Qixiao's sword was the cause, and when it landed on Chu Xiu's body, it was the effect. However, right now, Chu Xiu was forcibly seeing through this karma. He used the heaven's sun gazing at air to change this karma, forcing Fang Qixiao to change his sword stance again. However, it was still suppressed and seen through by Chu Xiu. Although this feeling was extremely stifling, it was extremely beneficial for both Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao. Previously, in the arena before the battle between the righteous and demonic paths on floating Jade Mountain, Chu Xiu had fought with Fang Qixiao using the Tao of karma. However, at that time, Chu Xiu was slightly weaker than Fang Qixiao, so in the end, Chu Xiu was the one who benefited. Now, in this clash of the Tao of karma, it was both sides who benefited. Bai Qian also saw this scene and nodded slightly. No matter why Fang Qixiao came this time, as long as he could improve in this battle, it would be a good thing. However, in the eyes of others, the battle between Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao was extremely awkward. They could not even understand the changes in their moves, including martial Tao grandmasters like Wang Shuangjuan and Qi Jian. They had to admit that young talents like Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao had mastered some things that ordinary martial Tao grandmasters did not have. Once such talents stepped into the martial Tao grandmaster realm, their cultivation base would definitely soar. Ying Bailu was also watching the battle carefully at the back. However, after watching for a while, he sighed deeply. In this generation of Jianghu, there were too many amazing talents, far more than in other eras. Zhang Chengzhen, who had condensed the Thunder Golden Core, only appeared once in 1,000 years. Chu Xiu, who stirred up the Jianghu with his own strength. Zhong Xian, who could use the Bright King seal to evolve thousands of techniques. And Fang Qixiao, the #1 sword Tao cultivator of the younger generation in front of him. It was both a blessing and a misfortune to be born in the same era as them. Uncle Fu, the old butler of the Ying clan, stood behind Ying Bailu. He had watched Ying Bailu grow up, so he naturally knew what Ying Bailu was thinking. Uncle Fu smiled and said, "Don't be discouraged, young master. In this age of martial Tao, everyone can shine. Just look at Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao now, but you don't know that thousands of young martial artists in the Jianghu are also watching you." Ying Bailu smiled and did not say anything. He was just sighing. He was Ying Bailu, and he was not someone who would be so easily discouraged. Just as Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao were fighting fiercely, the situation behind them changed. Bai Qian could stop Wang Shuangjuan and the other two, but he could not stop the others, nor could he control the overall situation. Chu Wuji was already at a disadvantage in his fight with Shi Yunzi. It was not that his cultivation was inferior to Shi Yunzi's, but that the pure Yang sword's destructive power was too great. This was, after all, Patriarch Lu's sword, the pure Yang sword, which was ranked 5th in the world-famous sword manual. With Shi Yunzi's extremely pure Yang energy, the sword's power to suppress all evil and slay all devils was unleashed to the extreme. However, Chu Wuji could still hold on for the time being, and Mr. Lu and Su Yangzi were also evenly matched. Lu Hongye, on the other hand, did not fare so well. As the master of the Hidden Sword Mountain Villa, Cheng Tingshan's cultivation, weapon, and time to break through to martial Tao grandmaster far surpassed Lu Hongye. Therefore, it was already not easy for Lu Hongye to withstand more than 10 moves from Cheng Tingshan. In the end, Cheng Tingshan shattered the weapon in his hand with a single strike, and he was seriously injured by the sword qi. He vomited blood and was sent flying. However, Cheng Tingshan did not choose to go after Lu Hongye. Instead, he turned around and attacked Chu Wuji. He did not know Lu Hongye. He only thought that Lu Hongye was a new martial Tao grandmaster from the Yinma clan, the kind with very weak strength. Killing him would not affect his reputation or the actual impact. However, if he killed Chu Wuji, who was a famous figure in the Yinma clan, his reputation would be even greater. Therefore, Cheng Tingshan directly attacked Chu Wuji with his sword, forcing him into a dangerous situation together with Shi Yunzi. Shi Yunzi frowned slightly at Cheng Tingshan's sudden intervention. He did not like to gang up on someone, but Shi Yunzi was not stupid enough to offend Cheng Tingshan just for the sake of fairness. He was just not in a hurry to attack. The only one who could maintain an absolute advantage at the scene was Mei Qinglian. Her great art of beauty affected one's primordial spirit. When she was fighting with Xiahou Zhen, the latter was even affected to the extent that he could not concentrate his primordial spirit, which made him feel extremely aggrieved. However, right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Mei Qinglian. Powerful earth energy condensed in a palm that contained a majestic power of blood, restraining Mei Qinglian's enchantment of the enchantment of the enchantment of women. This sudden attack was not something that Mei Qinglian expected at all. Although she turned into a black mist and dissipated after sensing the power, she still could not completely avoid the power of the palm. She was pushed back several steps, and a mouthful of blood flowed from her mouth. The one who sneak attacked Mei Qinglian from behind was Luo Jionian, the great ancestor of the Luo clan. Luo Jionian hated Chu Xiu to the bone. He was the one who took away Luo Feiheng, messed up the marriage between the Luo clan and the Ying clan, and made the Luo clan lose face. However, Luo Jionian also knew that his strength was probably the weakest among these people. Although his seniority was high, his strength was really not that great. Therefore, he did not attack, and Mei Qinglian and the others did not pay attention to it. There were actually many cultivators on the side of the Eastern Qi Alliance who did not attack, such as Yu Qifeng of the White Tiger Hall, the people of the Mo clan, Qi Yuanli of the Wind Sweeping Tower, and so on. Therefore, everyone subconsciously ignored the great ancestor of the Luo clan. They did not expect him to suddenly attack and successfully injure Mei Qinglian. Chapter 661. As Mei Qinglian was seriously injured, Chu Wuji was in danger of being besieged, and Chu Xiu's subordinates were also at a disadvantage. Xiahou Zhen could not help but smile. All of this was not much different from what he had expected. The strength of Chu Xiu's subordinates was so little, and his only backer, Wei Shuya, had also fought with Su Yun in northern Yen. From the looks of it, he should have been heavily injured and could not fight anymore. As for the experts of the Yinma clan hiding in the dark, Xiahou Zhen was not worried. At this point, the experts of the Yinma clan and many righteous sects also had a tacit understanding. Both sides would not use too much power, so as not to cause a large-scale war between the righteous and evil sects. Through the power that Chu Xiu had displayed, everyone was able to see how strong the hidden devil lineage was now. Naturally, there was no need to put all of their power on the line. If the Yinma clan could not help but fight, it meant that Chu Xiu could not survive this time, and it also meant that the Yinma clan was actually still weak. In this case, they could go back to the dark and continue to live. The other experts of the righteous martial world would also fight. At this time, on Chu Xiu's side, Chu Xiu and Fang Qishao were still fighting in that extremely awkward way, affecting each other's way of cause and effect, and affecting each other's attacks. Chu Xiu and Fang Qishao both saw the movement on the other side. Fang Qishao could not help saying, "Brother Chu, you'd better stop and leave the Guanzhong torture room with your people. As long as you hide in the dark, the righteous martial world will not completely kill you. If you continue to delay, all your subordinates will die." In Fang Qishao's impression, although Chu Xiu was extremely ruthless, he was actually good to his own people. However, now Chu Xiu was stubborn, which was a bit unwise in Fang Qishao's opinion. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Stop. It's already come to this, and I can't stop now. Besides, my people haven't arrived yet." Fang Qishao was slightly stunned. At this moment, the situation below changed again. Xiahou Zhen was just about to join forces with Luo Jionian to kill Mei Qinglian once and for all. But at this moment, a loud shout suddenly sounded, and an extremely powerful aura came from behind him. It was mixed with a tyrannical and powerful devil chi. Even Xiahozhen was shocked by the power of this aura. The spirit control art used the power of the essence soul to affect the world. In the blink of an eye, Xiahozhen was surrounded by astral winds. His speed was pushed to the limit as he dodged the attack. A loud boom rang out. A gigantic halberd, shining with demonic energy, smashed into the ground behind Xiahozhen. The ground was covered in cracks and a huge crater that was over 30 meters wide had been blasted out. One could imagine just how terrifying the power of the attack was and what would happen if it hit a person's body. Lu Fengxian. It's actually you. Xiahozhen shouted in disbelief. The one who attacked just now was Lu Fengxian, who was holding an unparalleled weapon, and her aura had climbed to the peak of the unity of nature and human realm. Moreover, there were also Shui Wuxiang and the other 3 people who came with Lu Fengxian. The 4 of them had used some secret method during this time, and their strength had also been raised to the early stage of the unity of nature and human realm. Although there were only 4 of them, these 4 guys were once powerhouses of the ancient times. Their strength was between the real pellet state and the real fire spirit refinement state. Their control of power was far from comparable to the martial artists of the same rank. As soon as they joined the battle, they killed several martial artists of the same rank. Carrying halberd, Lu Fengxian waved at Chu Xiu, indicating that she wasn't too late. Chu Xiu showed a smile at the corner of his mouth. He knew that Lu Fengxian would definitely come. It was just a matter of time. In Xiaofan Heaven, Lu Fengxian fought against Zhongxian, and she also gained a lot of benefits. The growth of her strength was also very obvious. At least at this time, when he used the unparalleled weapon, his own consumption was reduced a lot. Xiahozhen looked at Lu Fengxian and said in a low voice, Lu Fengxian. You should know the identity of Chu Xiu. He lied to you. Although you are good friends with him, you are not a demonic cultivator. Why do you want to help him get involved in this mess? Do you know that if you stand on the side of Chu Xiu today, in the future, you will be standing on the opposite side of the entire martial arts world's righteous path? Lu Fengxian shook her head indifferently and said, I have already guessed Brother Chu's identity. As for the opposite side of the martial arts world's righteous path, I seem to have never stood on the side of the martial arts world's righteous path. Okay, don't talk nonsense. Brother Chu's situation is critical, and I can't let you continue to be presumptuous. I have long wanted to experience the spirit commanding technique of the Xiahou family. As soon as her voice fell, Lu Fengxian directly attacked Xiahozhen. The unparalleled halberd in her hand slashed down with a monstrous demonic chi, and its power was extremely powerful. Facing Lu Fengxian, Xiahozhen also had a headache. Among the younger generation of the martial arts world, Lu Fengxian was indeed not as good as Chu Xiu, Fang Qi Xiao, and the others, but this did not mean that Lu Fengxian was weak. He was also born in the wilderness. He relied on his own strength to enter the Longhu list, and obtained the inheritance of the devil god Lv Wenho. At this moment, he was holding an extremely fierce divine weapon, and its power could be said to be extremely terrifying. It was not difficult for him to fight a martial arts grandmaster head-on. Although the spirit-commanding technique of the Xiahou family was magical, in the face of an existence like Lu Fengxian who completely relied on strength to fight him head-on, he still felt a little helpless. And this time, Lu Fengxian only brought 4 people with her. Although they were not weak, they could not affect the situation of the battle. But it did not matter. There were more people behind. A woman in a white tight-fitting warrior suit with a blood-red spear in her hand rode over from afar. Behind her was a large number of martial artists. Not to say there were thousands, but there were hundreds of them. And among these hundreds of people, there were almost no weaklings. The physical invulnerability realm was already the weakest existence. This extremely heroic woman in white was Luo Feiheng. In his previous life, after Luo Feiheng left the Luo family, he established the Bu Palace, and he was still doing well in the martial arts world. Now, she was helping Chu Xiu take charge of the 9-branch hall. With the support of Chu Xiu's reputation, and Mo Yezi secretly providing her with a lot of help, the 9-branch hall had already developed to the point that even Chu Xiu himself could not recognize it. Luo Feiheng brought many people with her. Although their strength was not comparable to the strength of Shui Wuxiang and the other 3 that Lu Fengxian brought, they could not hold up against the 9-branch hall. With the addition of these people from the 9-branch hall, the tide of the battle turned in an instant. The ones who were struggling were actually them. Leaping off the horse, Luo Feiheng pointed the blood spear red kite at Luo Jianyan. A sinister smile appeared on her beautiful face, but her eyes were filled with disgust and killing intent. Old ancestor, long time no see. Why aren't you staying in seclusion in the Luo family? What are you doing here? Are you tired of living? Do you want to die faster? Luo Jianyan looked at Luo Feiheng with the same gaze. He only spat out 2 words coldly, evil spawn. As a disciple of the Luo family, he did not care about the interests of the Luo family at all. He was selfish and even almost destroyed the ancestral hall of the Luo family. If such a person was not an evil spawn, then what was? Luo Feiheng laughed coldly and said, evil spawn? The Luo family has already deteriorated to such an extent. Luo Jianyan, as the old ancestor of the Luo family, you have contributed the most. Although the Luo family treated me unjustly, I can't be heartless to them. Getting rid of you might even save the Luo family. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Feiheng directly charged at Luo Jianyan with the blood spear red kite in his hand. After Xiao Fan Tian, Luo Feiheng also stepped into the unity of heaven and man realm. But to fight a martial Dao grandmaster just after attaining unity of heaven and man, there were not many people in the pugilistic world who were as arrogant as Chu Xiu. Now, there was also Luo Feiheng. Although Luo Jianyan was old, a martial Dao grandmaster was still a martial Dao grandmaster. Luo Feiheng had just stepped into the unity of heaven and man realm, and it was a little too dangerous to fight him. Lu Fengxian gave Shui Wuxiang and Yan Qishao a look and secretly sent them a voice transmission, asking them to protect Luo Feiheng. Although these 2 people were only at the unity of heaven and man realm now, they were still powerful in the past and had countless secret techniques. It would not be a problem for them to support Luo Feiheng at the critical moment and protect their own lives. Among the crowd, Mo Tianlin was actually also there, but he did not have the face to see Chu Xiu. People like Lu Fengxian and Luo Feiheng were helping Chu Xiu, but as a friend, he had to stand on the opposite side of Chu Xiu. He could not even change Bai Qian's plan like Fang Qishao did, which made Mo Tianlin feel a little ashamed. Seeing this scene, Mo Tianlin could not help but say to a tall and imposing old man beside him, "Old ancestor, you have seen Brother Chu's strength. As long as he doesn't die this time, he will definitely soar to the sky. Our Mo clan has always been neutral, so why should we listen to Xiao's order and attack the Guanzhong torture room? Old ancestor, if you help Chu Xiu now, it will definitely be like sending charcoal in snowy weather, and you will definitely gain the favor of the Yinma clan." The Mo clan's old ancestor, Mo Qingming, was actually not too old. Although he was past the prime of his life, his qi and blood had not started to decline on a large scale, so he still looked very young, only in his early 50s. When he heard Mo Tianlin's words, he could not help but shake his head and say, "Tianlin, I know what you mean. You are good friends with Chu Xiu, so you want the Mo clan to help Chu Xiu. However, there are some things that you cannot be capricious about. In the pugilistic world, one cannot do as he pleases. Everything must be done with the clan in mind. The current situation is not clear yet, so the most I can do is not to add insult to injury. I also know that sending charcoal in snowy weather will bring great benefits, but it will not be worth it if it causes me to freeze to death. Learn from that good friend of yours, Xia Xiaolu. He has a good relationship with Chu Xiu, but the World Alliance's Qinqing Di has not made a move either. Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, Old ancestor, you are wrong. Xia Xiaolu told me before that he will not sit by and do nothing, so Qinqing Di will definitely make a move. Otherwise, why hasn't a single power from West Chu come? Chapter 662. Mo Tianlin was right. Xia Xiaolu looked cold, but as long as it was a friend he recognized, he would treat them sincerely. Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian were his friends, so Xia Xiaolu, who rarely asked for help from Qinqing Di, finally spoke. Qinqing Di did not refuse his disciple's request. He just took Xia Xiaolu to the only path from West Chu to the Guanzhong torture room. He set up a shed and sat there drinking tea. After a few sips, he felt it was not enough, so he had Xia Xiaolu go to a town a dozen miles away to buy 2 jars of wine. 2 days later, 2 groups of people happened to meet on the road. One was from the Jianghu family, the other was from the Ba Mountain Sword sect. The Jianghu family had a grudge with Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian because of the mountain opening ceremony, while the Ba Mountain Sword sect had an even greater grudge with Chu Xiu. Last time, Chu Xiu had fought his way to the gates of the Ba Mountain Sword sect and almost killed Chen Jiankong. So this time, when they heard that Chu Xiu was in trouble, the Jianghu family and the Ba Mountain Sword sect could not find a reason not to kick them when they were down. They had not communicated before, and it was a pure coincidence that they had met this time. But since they met, after communicating their intentions, the two prepared to bring people to the Guanzhong torture room. But before they could rejoice for long, they saw Qinqing Di sitting in the middle of the road, drinking wine under the shed. The moment they saw Qinqing Di, both the Jianghu family's patriarch Dong Qikuan and the Ba Mountain Sword sect's Chen Jiankong changed expressions. In all of West Chu, no one wanted to interact with Qinqing Di because he was not someone they could interact with. Qinqing Di held his wine bowl and glanced at them. He sneered and pointed at Dong Qikuan. You, go back to Jialing. He pointed at Chen Jiankong and said, You, go back to Mount Ba. In front of the many disciples of the Jianghu family and Ba Mountain Sword sect, Qinqing Di told them to go back. This kind of humiliation caused the two to blush. They were furious but did not dare to act. They were well aware of Qinqing Di's personality. Even if the two of them joined forces, how many punches from Qinqing Di could they block? Seeing that the two of them still hadn't left, Qinqing Di narrowed his eyes and said coldly, I told you to scram, didn't you hear me? I don't want to repeat myself. Qinqing Di stood up and took a step forward, causing the ground to rumble. It was like an earth dragon had turned over, and the might it emanated caused the expressions of Dong Qikuan and Chen Jiankong to change abruptly. Without another word, Dong Qikuan immediately turned around and left with his people. During the mountain opening ceremony, Dong Qikuan had been threatened by Qinqing Di by the neck. His fear of Qinqing Di came from the bottom of his heart. Qinqing Di was a madman with no scruples. He really dared to kill him. Seeing that Dong Qikuan had left, Chen Jiankong did not dare to face the famous Qinqing Di alone. He also left dejectedly. With just one sentence, he had scared away 2 martial arts grandmasters, 2 top forces in the martial world. Qinqing Di's power was already quite shocking. Xia Xiaolu said from the side, Master, aren't you going to the Guanzhong torture room to help Chu Xiu? Brother Lu Fengxian is also there. Qinqing Di sat down again and poured himself a bowl of wine. He softly said, That brat Chu Xiu is more cunning than you guys. He knows what he is doing, so you don't need to worry about him. As for that kid Lu Fengxian, he's an honest man, but he's had a lot of luck and opportunities, and he's also met friends like you, so he hasn't suffered much. It's his own choice to help Chu Xiu, and we don't need to worry for him. Helping that brat Chu Xiu block the West Chu people is already a very benevolent person. As for going to the Guanzhong torture room, that is absolutely impossible. It's not that I don't want to help, it's that I can't help. The relationship between the righteous and demonic paths is very delicate right now. My world alliance has always been neutral, so if I go now, which side do you think I will stand on? Moreover, you have also seen how many experts the righteous and demonic paths have produced in such a long time. There is only Wei Shuya and Su Yun. Wei Shuya only helped because he is Chu Xiu's backer. I heard that he is also the person who supports Chu Xiu the most in the Hidden Devil sect. And Su Yun only helped because Chu Xiu brazenly attacked the Northern Yen. As the largest sect in the Northern Yen, the Great Light Temple had to respond. If Chu Xiu had stayed in the Guanzhong torture room, Su Yun wouldn't have helped. Both the righteous and demonic paths are restraining themselves, controlling this matter to a certain extent, so that it doesn't become a big deal. Chen Qingdi suddenly stretched out his hand and put his finger into the wine bowl. Immediately, circles of ripples rose and the vibration became stronger and stronger. Finally, with a loud bang, the wine bowl exploded. The current situation is like the wine in this wine bowl. If no one stirs it, it will be calm. No matter how they fight, it will not overflow. On the contrary, if an expert surpassing this level interferes, the biggest possibility is that this wine bowl will explode, and no one will have wine to drink. Xia Xiaolu nodded thoughtfully. He suddenly said, "Master, you said that it is not okay if an expert surpassing this level interferes. Are you boasting that you are comparable to an expert in the true fire spirit refining realm?" Slap. Chen Qingdi directly slapped Xia Xiaolu's head, almost slapping him to the ground. Looking up at the sky, Chen Qingdi said indifferently, "So what if you are in the true fire spirit refining realm? If one punch can't kill you, then 2 punches. The true fire spirit refining realm is like heaven to a junior like you, unattainable. But to me, so what if it is heaven? I can pick the stars with my hand." On the battlefield outside of Guanzhong City, with the addition of Lu Fengxian and Luo Feiheng's people, the situation had finally stabilized. This battle was different from the battle with Northern Yen. Chu Xiu could still choose to launch a sneak attack or use tricks. In this battle, he had really put all his power and connections into it. He was going to fight head-on. Chu Xiu did not know what was going on the West Chu side. He had only sent a message to Xia Xiaolu and asked him for help, but because time was too tight, Xia Xiaolu did not even reply. But Chu Xiu believed that Xia Xiaolu would help him. Moreover, with Chen Qingdi's strength, there was almost no one in the West Chu that could stop him. So, Chu Xiu could rest assured on this side and did not need to worry about the West Chu side. Constantly using the heaven sun gazing at air technique to test attacks with Fang Qi Shao, this consumed a lot of Chu Xiu's spiritual force. In every instant, both sides were constantly changing their moves, constantly testing each other. It seemed like the fight between the two sides was not intense, but the danger was hidden in the details. With Bai Weiwei watching from the side, Fang Qi Shao did not hold back at all. Chu Xiu was the same. Although they were friends, they were also experts of the younger generation ranked on the Dragon Tiger list. This battle was not about benefits, but rather to test their own martial arts. Chu Xiu took a deep breath. After fighting for so long, whether it was himself or Fang Qi Shao, they were completely familiar with each other's changes. It was time for this battle to end. Clenching the heavenly demon dance in his hand, Chu Xiu's aura suddenly changed. The blade momentum became misty and a strange aura was emitted, as if it was affecting the surrounding time and space. In an instant, Chu Xiu seemed to be out of the control of this space. The aura was very strange. Just the beginning of the blade momentum had already attracted everyone's attention. The blade momentum Chu Xiu used was the misty red dust cut of the past Dugu Weiwei. This was a powerful martial arts technique that Chu Xiu could not understand in the past. Even if Chu Xiu temporarily imprinted it in his heart by consuming the power of Daoist connotation and could slowly understand it, Chu Xiu still had not fully mastered it. He could not even use the complete misty red dust cut. So now, Chu Xiu's blade was just a bluff. If he forcefully used this blade, he would actually hurt himself first. But it was this starting move that shocked countless people. Not to mention the martial artists in the oneness of heaven and man realm, even the martial Dao grandmasters were shocked by the aura and power emitted by this blade. Fang Qishao knew that Chu Xiu had a lot of trump cards, but he did not expect that Chu Xiu had such a trump card. At this moment, Fang Qishao did not think about resisting at all. Instead, he ran the karma sword principle with all his strength and dodged with all his strength. However, at this moment, Fang Qishao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and a look of horror appeared on his face. What kind of blade technique was this? It was so powerful that he had just used the karma Dao to deduce it, and it directly backfired. After seeing this, Chu Xiu immediately changed his blade momentum and slashed down with the power of the hatred blade with the heavenly demon dance. It directly forced Fang Qishao to retreat more than 10 steps. Chu Xiu did not continue to attack. He just spread his hands and said to Fang Qishao, "I'm sorry, brother Fang." In fact, strictly speaking, Chu Xiu had won by cheating just now. Fang Qishao's karma sword principle was extremely difficult to deal with. In a normal fight, even if Chu Xiu used absolute power to crush Fang Qishao, he would have to expend a lot of energy to do so. Shenbai and the others were still eyeing him covetously. Therefore, Chu Xiu could only use a small trick. If he used the red dust ethereal slash, a martial technique that even he could not fully control, as long as Fang Qishao habitually used the karma sword principle to deduce it, he would definitely be backfired. This was also where Chu Xiu's true confidence came from. The karma Dao was the only thing that Fang Qishao could do. Although Chu Xiu also knew the heaven's sun gazing at air, it was not his trump card. Fang Qishao smiled bitterly and said, "There's no need to apologize. I'm not as skilled as others. It seems that the heavens are indeed fair. With how handsome I am, I'm bound to be greatly discounted in other areas." Seeing that Fang Qishao could still talk nonsense at this time, Chu Xiu did not care. Based on Fang Qishao's character, he would not be defeated so easily. However, Chu Xiu suddenly felt that something was wrong. "You're handsome, but you're slightly weaker. Would I be ugly if I defeated you?" Chapter 663. The battle between Chu Xiu and Fang Qishao had just ended. At this time, Qi Jian suddenly said to Bai Qian, "Ba. Hall Master Bai, since you're done, isn't it our turn to make a move? If you continue to obstruct us, does that mean that your Sword King's city is prepared to join the hidden devil lineage?" Bai Qian snorted coldly and said, "If you want to make a move, then make a move. However, Great Monk, you can eat indiscriminately, but you can't speak indiscriminately. I know that you have a good relationship with the Great Light Temple and Sabodhi Monastery, but you're not a member of these two sects." Qi Jian didn't continue to talk nonsense with Bai Qian. Since Bai Qian didn't want to continue to obstruct them, the three of them immediately charged at Chu Xiu with sword in hand, Wang Shuangjuan, and Shenbai without the slightest delay. Just now, when Chu Xiu fought against Fang Qishao, although he used a trick to defeat Fang Qishao in the end, he also consumed a lot of strength. At this time, they didn't intend to give Chu Xiu any time to rest and recover his strength. Fang Qishao frowned. These three people were obviously rushing to kill, and they didn't care about any rules. Bai Qian said faintly from the side, "If you don't let me kill Chu Xiu can't escape this situation either. Seventh young master, let's go. Since things have come to this, it's useless for you to wait here." Fang Qishao shook his head and said, "Not necessarily. I feel that Brother Chu can survive this calamity." Bai Qian raised his eyebrows and said, "Why?" Fang Qishao said with a solemn face, "Intuition, a man's intuition." Bai Qian smiled and didn't say anything. He didn't believe in intuition, and only believed in what he saw in front of him. Since Fang Qishao didn't want to leave, then so be it. It would be fine as long as he didn't interfere. However, at this moment, the light of the formation suddenly rose from the ground. The killing intent and demonic qi gathered by the countless cultivators fighting and slaughtering on the ground all surged into Chu Xiu's body, causing his body to instantly burn with a black and red demonic flame that soared into the sky. Qi Jian frowned and said, "It's the Kunlun devil cult's demon-gathering formation. Is this Chu Xiu planning to risk his life?" In the past, the Kunlun devil cult dominated the pugilistic world. Some of their martial arts and formations were actually very conspicuous. For example, this demon-gathering formation. However, this thing wasn't a powerful formation. Instead, it was something that Kunlun devil cult disciples would only use when they were fighting for their lives. They would set up the demon-gathering formation in the killing field and condense the devil qi and evil blood qi in the killing field into their own bodies. The more intense the battle, the stronger the devil qi and evil blood qi that could be condensed. Although the formation was carved on the ground, the formation's eye was on the warrior's body. So as long as the warrior didn't die, the demon-gathering formation wouldn't be destroyed. The reason why this kind of formation was only used when one was fighting for their lives was because the devil qi and evil blood qi condensed by the demon-gathering formation couldn't be controlled. In the early stages, it could indeed bring great power to the user. But in the later stages, the devil qi would gather more and more, making it impossible for the user to control it. In the end, it could even directly cause the person who set up the formation to explode. In the past, when the Kunlun devil cult was attacked by many righteous sects, there was a hall where several devil Dao warriors set up the demon-gathering formation together to resist the righteous sect's attack. With the strength of a few people, they blocked 100 people and forcibly held on for an hour. But in the end, because they couldn't control the powerful devil qi, they exploded and died. Now that Chu Xiu had used such a thing as a trump card, it was obvious that he had exhausted his limited abilities. So the three people looked at each other and immediately began to attack wildly. The fiercer their attack, the more devil qi and evil blood qi Chu Xiu would absorb. But this was like drinking poison to quench thirst. Maybe before they killed Chu Xiu would be destroyed by the powerful devil qi and evil blood qi. Qi Jian pinched a Buddhist seal with his hand, and his whole body flashed with a dazzling golden light. The Buddha shadow behind him was hazy, and it fell toward Chu Xiu. Wang Shuangjuan followed behind the sword-wielding man, and the two long swords in her hands with hot gang qi slashed down. The sword qi seemed to burn the space, and wherever it passed, the devil qi was all ignited. The momentum around Shenbai's body also rose to the extreme. Below, whether it was Chu Xiu's men or the warriors of the Eastern Qi Alliance, as long as they were holding a sword, the long swords in their hands were trembling slightly. In the end, those warriors who couldn't control the long swords in their hands could only watch helplessly as the long swords in their hands flew into the air, hovering around Shenbai, mixed with endless sword qi, staring at Chu Xiu. The three of them had already attacked with all their strength in order to push Chu Xiu to the extreme. The harder they pushed, the more frantically Chu Xiu would absorb the devil qi, which was like drinking poison to quench thirst, and the faster he would die. But in the next moment, the expressions of the three changed at the same time. This was somewhat different from what they had expected. The devil qi lingered behind Chu Xiu, and the power of his primordial spirit actually condensed into a hazy devil shadow. The boundless evil qi and devil qi integrated into the devil shadow, making the devil shadow extremely agile, as if a sky devil had descended. Facing the three people, the devil shadow roared to the sky 8 times in a row. Each time it roared, it made Qi Jian and the other two tremble. Their heads seemed to be hit by a heavy hammer, and the roar kept echoing in their heads. After the 8 roars, Qi Jian and Wang Shuangjuan's eyes turned red, and their attacks were all affected and dissipated. Even a wisp of blood flowed from their mouths. Only Shunbai could still withstand his attacks, and he forced his willpower to resist the devil sound that kept echoing in his mind. This move was the most psychic of the 9 moves of the capturer, 8 demonic sounds. If Chu Xiu had not gathered such a powerful devil qi through the demon gathering formation, which could offset a part of the psychic power consumed, Chu Xiu would not have dared to use this kind of martial art. Taking a step forward, Chu Xiu slashed the demonic dance in his hand toward Wang Shuangjuan with extreme hatred. The surging devil qi gathered on the blade, and as the blade fell, the devil flame soared into the sky. This extremely hateful blade strike, coupled with the powerful power gathered by the demon gathering formation, directly smashed Wang Shuangjuan's blade momentum and sent him flying. At the same time, the human puppet appeared next to Qi Jian, opened its mouth, and released the evil hungry ghost incarnation to devour Qi Jian. Although the hungry ghost incarnation could not share the power brought by the demon gathering formation, it would not be a problem for it to temporarily entangle Qi Jian. At this moment, Shunbai's 10,000 swords returned to origin had already fallen, and the endless long swords and sword qi hidden in the void rushed toward Chu Xiu. The momentum climbed to the extreme, and it was even stronger than when Shunbai used all his strength to repel Cheng Tingshan in Eastern Qi Alliance. He fought with Cheng Tingshan just to make a name for himself, but now he was fighting with his life against Chu Xiu. In the face of the dense and howling sword qi, Chu Xiu just casually stretched out a finger, and in an instant, an endless amount of devil qi was sucked into this finger. It seemed to be a light point, but like ink falling into a glass, the black color began to spread. Divine Finger of Divine Retribution. The power of this finger originally only carried the aura of death, but with the help of the boundless devil qi, it seemed to condense all the negative forces into one body. Breaking through the surface with a single point, the black in the void spread like a halo. Wherever it passed, whether it was sword qi or long swords, everything was melted and destroyed. In the end, Shunbai only had one sword on him, and that was the white rainbow that his master had left for him. Qi Jian was fighting with the hungry ghost incarnation, but at the same time, he felt that something was wrong. The development of things seemed to be beyond his expectations. Chu Xiu's explosive power was too amazing, so amazing that he could still control such a majestic devil qi and evil qi into his body, and find a way to consume it. If this continued, before they could exhaust Chu Xiu to death, Chu Xiu would first use the demon gathering formation to kill them, and then take the initiative to disperse the formation. Although they would suffer a certain degree of backlash, it would definitely be able to save their lives. Qi Jian shouted at the people below, "Stop fighting with the others, attack with all your strength, and deal with Chu Xiu." Originally, their plan was to have some people stop Chu Xiu, and the others deal with Chu Xiu's subordinates, striving to kill all of Chu Xiu's subordinates, and then finally gather their strength to deal with Chu Xiu together. But now, it seemed that the situation had changed, and the 3 of them could not stop Chu Xiu. They naturally saw the situation on Qi Jian's side. Cheng Tingshan no longer besieged Chu Wuji with Shi Yunzi, and immediately attacked Chu Xiu with his sword. When Luo Jianyan saw this scene, he immediately used all his strength to repel Luo Feiheng. If it was not for Shui Wuxiang and Yan Qixiao's protection, she would have been seriously injured by the Luo clan's patriarch. After all, Luo Jianyan was a martial Dao Grand Master, and Luo Feiheng had just stepped into this realm. No matter how strong she was, there was still a gap between her and Luo Jianyan. Most importantly, Luo Jianyan was the Luo clan's patriarch, and he had cultivated the Luo clan's martial arts all his life. In terms of familiarity, he was definitely more familiar than Luo Feiheng, and he could suppress her. Seeing that Luo Jianyan was going to besiege Chu Xiu, Luo Feiheng gritted her teeth and was about to rush forward again, but at this time, Chu Xiu's voice rang in her ears, "Don't do it, I'm confident." Luo Feiheng hesitantly looked at Chu Xiu, who was besieged by 4 martial Dao Grand Masters and Shunbai, who was not inferior to a martial Dao Grand Master. You're already in this state, and you still have confidence. But since Chu Xiu said so, Luo Feiheng did not continue to attack. Instead, she turned to attack the other martial artists. Luo Feiheng was much weaker than a martial Dao Grand Master, but among martial artists of the same level, unless they were the top 10 on the Longhu list, Luo Feiheng was really not afraid of anyone. When Lu Fengxian saw this scene, he also wanted to immediately get rid of Xiahozhen to support Chu Xiu, but he was tightly entangled by Xiahozhen and could not get away. Lu Fengxian was strong enough, and he also had the unparalleled divine weapon with him. Ordinary martial Dao Grand Masters might not be his match. But now, his opponent was Xiahozhen, who was on the Fengyun list. It was basically impossible for Lu Fengxian to defeat Xiahozhen in a short time, so he could only watch Chu Xiu being besieged. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.